to the resilient spirits of the Edo period, the farmers who toiled under the weight of expectation, the artisans who crafted beauty amidst hardship, the samurai who lived by a rigid code of honor, and all those who navigated the complexities of feudal Japan with courage and quiet dignity. This book is a humble attempt to illuminate the lives lived within the shadow of the shogunate, a testament to their endurance, their struggles, and their enduring humanity. It is dedicated to those whose stories often remain untold, overshadowed by the grandeur of the ruling class and the sweeping narratives of war and political intrigue. Their everyday realities, woven into the fabric of daily life, hold a profound significance, offering a window into the true heart of a nation. This work is also dedicated to the countless historians and scholars who have dedicated their lives to unearthing and preserving the fragments of the past, meticulously piecing together the details of daily existence in feudal Japan. Their tireless research and insightful interpretations form the bedrock upon which this narrative is built, providing a foundation of historical accuracy and a rich tapestry of contextual understanding. Without their dedication, the stories within these pages would remain untold, lost to the mists of time. Furthermore, this book is dedicated to the readers, to those who seek to understand the past, to connect with the human experience across centuries and cultures. It is a hope that by immersing themselves in the lives of Taro, Kenji, and Hana, readers will gain a deeper appreciation for the resilience of the human spirit, the complexities of history, and the enduring power of storytelling. May it spark curiosity, ignite the imagination, and leave an indelible mark on the understanding of a significant period in Japanese history, a period of both harsh realities and enduring cultural richness. The struggles and triumphs, the hopes and fears, the joys and sorrows, these are the threads that connect us across time, weaving a timeless tapestry of shared human experience. May this book serve as a testament to that enduring connection and the power of empathy to bridge the chasm of centuries. The pre-dawn chill bit at Taro's exposed skin as he stirred, the rough straw mat offering little comfort against the damp earth floor. His small, cramped farmhouse felt colder than usual, the thin paper windows offering scant protection against the biting wind whistling through the gaps in the aging wood. He shivered, pulling his threadbare cotton kimono tighter around his frail frame. 6 years old, but already burdened with the weight of responsibilities far beyond his years. A low groan from his parents' sleeping area marked the beginning of another day. His mother, her face etched with the lines of unrelenting hardship, was already stirring, the faint scent of wood smoke and something faintly sweet but mostly acrid, indicating she was preparing their meager breakfast. He knew what awaited him, a bowl of rice gruel, thin and watery, barely enough to quell the gnawing hunger in his stomach. His younger sister Hana, just 4 years old, slept soundly beside his parents, her small frame alarmingly thin, her cheeks hollowed out like a weathered mask. Even at his tender age, Taro recognized the signs of malnutrition in his sister's gaunt form, a familiar and chilling specter in their village. The first rays of the pale winter sun struggled to penetrate the gloom of the farmhouse, casting long shadows across the dirt floor. It offered little warmth, serving only as a grim reminder of the harsh realities that awaited them. The upcoming rice planting season loomed large, a shadow of back-breaking labor stretching across their lives. The land, their sole provider, demanded everything from them, and yet yielded so little. The weight of expectation pressed down on Taro's small shoulders, a burden disproportionate to his age. He was already learning the language of silent desperation, reading the anxieties etching ever deeper lines on his parents' faces. The gruel, tasteless and meager, was swallowed down quickly, a mere prelude to the day's unending toil. The cold seeped into his bones as he helped his father prepare their tools, a rusty hoe, a worn wooden rake, and a small hand-carved plow. His hands, small and calloused beyond their years, already knew the ache of hard labor. He felt a twinge of sympathy for his sister, still sleeping, unaware of the day's demands. The fields stretched out before them, vast and unforgiving, a canvas of dark brown mud mirroring the bleakness of their prospects. The wind howled, carrying with it the biting scent of winter and the chilling whispers of famine. The villagers worked tirelessly, their movement synchronized by years of shared hardship. Their faces, grim and determined, bore testament to the relentless cycle of toil that defined their lives. There was little joy, only a quiet desperation, a resigned acceptance of their fate. The rhythm of the work was relentless, the rhythmic scrape of the hoe, the heavy thud of the plow, the constant bending and stooping. Taro struggled to keep up with the adults, his small frame straining under the weight of his tasks. His fingers, raw and bleeding from the rough earth, were a constant reminder of the harsh realities of their life. Yet there was no complaining, only the quiet determination to endure. Each drop of sweat was a testament to their will to survive, a defiance against the grim specter of hunger that stalked them. They labored from dawn to dusk, only pausing for a brief midday break of more rice gruel and a few pickled vegetables, a stark contrast to the rich meals enjoyed by the samurai. The thought of the samurai, the warrior class living in opulent comfort, fueled a silent resentment within Taro. He couldn't comprehend the injustice of their lives, the stark contrast between their endless toil and the privilege of those who seemed to live without effort. Yet, he understood instinctively that his defiance would be futile, a silent complaint against a rigid, unforgiving social structure. As dusk approached, casting long shadows across the darkening fields, the exhaustion was almost palpable. Taro felt the familiar sting of hunger in his belly, a constant companion throughout his young life. But it was more than hunger. It was the weight of responsibility, the crushing weight of his family's survival resting squarely on his small shoulders. He looked at his parents, their bodies bent and weary, and he felt a surge of fierce loyalty, a silent vow to endure, to work harder, to do whatever it took to secure their survival. The nights were as unforgiving as the days. Their farmhouse, a testament to poverty and neglect, offered little warmth or comfort. The cold seeped into the straw mats, and the dampness clung to their clothes. The meager rice gruel offered little respite from the gnawing hunger, and the threat of illness hung heavy in the air. Smallpox was a constant fear, a specter that haunted every village, claiming the lives of many with terrifying ease. One night, as Taro huddled under a thin blanket, barely able to keep warm, he overheard his parents whispering. Their words were hushed and low, but he caught snippets of their conversation: the dwindling rice stores, the approaching winter, the looming threat of famine. The fear in their voices resonated within him, a chilling echo of his own anxieties. He knew, even at his young age, that their situation was dire, that their survival was hanging by a thread. The next morning, he woke to the sound of his sister crying. Her fever had returned, her body racked with chills. His parents, their faces etched with fear and worry, tried to soothe her, but their efforts were futile. Taro watched helplessly as his sister's condition worsened, the shadows of death creeping closer. The weight of their misfortune pressed down on him, crushing him under its weight. In their village, medicine was rudimentary, a collection of herbal remedies and folk practices passed down through generations. They lacked the skills and resources to adequately care for Hana. As days turned into nights, Taro could do little more than watch, helplessly, as his sister succumbed to the ravages of her fever. Her death brought a profound sense of loss and hopelessness, yet life continued its harsh rhythm, relentless and indifferent to their grief. The fields still needed tending, the rice still needed planting, and the threat of famine loomed as large as ever. The burden of survival, even in the face of unimaginable loss, was a weight Taro would carry throughout his life. He would learn to live with the quiet desperation, but the memory of his sister's passing and the harsh reality of his peasant life would forever be etched into his soul. The rising sun cast long shadows across the polished wooden floor of Kenji's dojo, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the shafts of light. Kenji, barely 15 summers old, already bore the etched lines of discipline on his youthful face. His muscles, honed by years of relentless training, rippled beneath his sweat-soaked gi. The air hung heavy with the scent of sweat, wood, and the faint metallic tang of blood, a constant reminder of the brutal path he walked. Unlike Taro, whose life revolved around the relentless cycle of planting and harvesting, Kenji's existence was a relentless dance with steel. His training began before the first hint of dawn, a grueling regimen that pushed him to the very limits of his endurance. He started with hours of kendo practice, the rhythmic clash of bamboo swords echoing through the dojo, each strike a testament to his dedication and skill. His sensei, a grizzled veteran of countless battles, watched with a hawk-like intensity, correcting his posture, his stance, his every move with harsh words and even harsher blows. There was no room for weakness, no tolerance for error. Every mistake was met with a sharp rebuke, every stumble with a swift and painful lesson. The wooden swords were eventually replaced with the real thing, katana, their polished steel gleaming menacingly in the flickering candlelight. The weight of the sword, the feel of the perfectly balanced blade, the deadly sharpness of its edge, these were not mere tools, but extensions of Kenji's very being. He learned to wield it with precision and grace, each movement fluid and deadly, a testament to years of dedicated practice. He learned to read the subtle shifts in his opponent's stance, to anticipate their moves, to strike with the speed and precision of a viper. His training wasn't confined to the dojo. He spent hours practicing aido, the art of drawing and sheathing the katana with lightning-fast speed, often with his eyes closed. He learned to control his breath, to focus his mind, to channel his energy into a single devastating strike. He spent days at the archery range, his arrows finding their marks with unnerving accuracy, a skill honed by years of dedicated practice. He also honed his skills in horsemanship, mastering the art of riding and fighting from horseback, a crucial skill for any samurai on the battlefield. His body, though still youthful, was already hardened and battle-ready. The brutal reality of samurai life was far removed from the hardships faced by Taro and his family. While Taro toiled endlessly in the rice paddies, facing the constant threat of famine and disease, Kenji trained in relative comfort, his needs catered to by servants. Yet his life was far from easy. The samurai code, the bushido, demanded unwavering discipline, unwavering loyalty, and unwavering courage. Failure to meet these standards could result in dishonor, a fate worse than death, leading inevitably to seppuku, ritual suicide. This ever-present shadow of death hung over every aspect of Kenji's existence. The gleam of his katana, meticulously polished until it mirrored his own determined gaze, reflected the stark reality of his life. This wasn't simply a weapon, it was a symbol of his status, his power, and his unwavering commitment to the warrior's path. The intricate carvings on its saya, scabbard, hinted at the artistry and dedication that went into its creation, reflecting the meticulous craftsmanship that went into every aspect of samurai culture, even their tools and clothes. Each piece of his ornate armor, from the intricate lacquer work on his helmet to the meticulously crafted plates on his cuirass, told a story of skill, wealth, and power. It was a stark contrast to Taro's rough-spun clothes, a visible marker of his place in society. Kenji's home, nestled amidst a sprawling estate, stood in stark contrast to Taro's cramped farmhouse. It was a sprawling structure, made of polished wood and paper screens, adorned with exquisite artwork, and surrounded by meticulously maintained gardens. Within its walls, Kenji lived a life of privilege and relative comfort. He feasted on delicacies Taro could only dream of, succulent meats, fine rice, and rare seasonal fruits. He enjoyed the company of his family and fellow samurai, spending his evenings practicing calligraphy or playing Go, while Taro faced the harsh realities of a peasant's life. Yet, this comfort came at a price. Kenji's father, a high-ranking samurai, placed immense pressure on him. The expectations were crushing. He had to not only live up to his father's legacy, but also surpass it. The weight of his family name rested heavily on his young shoulders, a burden almost as heavy as his father's katana. Kenji's ambition burned as brightly as the polished steel of his blade. He yearned for glory on the battlefield, for the recognition and respect that came with victory, for the advancement in status and privilege that would solidify his position within the intricate web of samurai society. He dreamed of leading his men in battle, of earning the respect of his peers, and of one day becoming a powerful daimyo, ruling his own lands, but these dreams were fraught with peril. The path to glory was paved with the blood and sweat of countless battles, each one a potential step toward his ambitions, or a fatal misstep leading to dishonor and death. The constant threat of conflict loomed large in Kenji's life. The samurai were not merely warriors. They were the guardians of order, the enforcers of the shogun's will. Their lives were defined by both the sword and the intricate social rules of feudal Japan. They existed on a knife's edge, their honor under constant scrutiny, their lives a constant tightrope walk between glory and disgrace. This was especially true in Kenji's case. His father's political position within the shogunate meant Kenji was always under intense scrutiny. One wrong move, one moment of weakness, or even the slightest hint of disrespect could lead to devastating consequences: banishment, imprisonment, or seppuku. He had to maintain the sharp edge of his blade, not just against external enemies, but against the ever-present threat to his honor within his own society. His training reflected the precariousness of his position. It wasn't simply about physical prowess. It was about discipline, about mental fortitude, about an unwavering commitment to the samurai code. Every swing of his katana, every arrow he loosed, every maneuver he performed on horseback was a testament to his dedication, a demonstration of his willingness to sacrifice everything for honor, a constant reminder of the price of failure. The privilege of his position came hand in hand with the weight of expectation, the constant threat of betrayal, and the stark awareness that his life could end at any moment, in the throes of battle or by his own hand. Kenji's life, while seemingly a world apart from Taro's, was also defined by a kind of harsh, unforgiving reality, a relentless pressure to succeed or face the devastating consequences of failure. The steel of his katana mirrored the hardened resolve in his heart, reflecting the unrelenting pressures of his world. The glittering surface hid a sharp and unforgiving edge, just as his calm exterior masked the constant tension and anxiety within. The scent of salt and brine hung heavy in the air, a stark contrast to the earthy smells of the countryside. Osaka, a city teeming with life, sprawled before me, a kaleidoscope of sights and sounds that assaulted the senses. It was a far cry from the quiet rhythm of the rice paddies and the hushed solemnity of Kenji's dojo. Here, the air vibrated with a frenetic energy, a chaotic symphony of human activity that both captivated and unsettled. Wooden buildings, packed together like sardines, climbed hillsides, their tiled roofs shimmering under the relentless sun. Narrow, twisting streets, choked with people and goods, snaked their way through the city, a labyrinthine maze that seemed to swallow and spit out its inhabitants in a continuous, churning flow. The marketplace was a riot of color and sound. Merchants hawked their wares with practiced cries, their voices a raucous chorus that competed with the clip-clop of sandals on cobblestones and the rumble of carts laden with goods. Stalls overflowed with silks and satins, their vibrant hues a stark contrast to the muted tones of the peasant garb I had grown accustomed to. The air throbbed with the rhythmic clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the sweet aroma of freshly baked mochi, and the pungent tang of fish drying in the sun. This was a city that lived and breathed commerce, where fortunes could be made and lost in the blink of an eye. Yet, beneath the vibrant surface of this bustling metropolis lurked a darker undercurrent, a shadow cast by the city's rigid social hierarchies, the casual cruelty of the powerful, the desperation of the poor, the ever-present threat of violence. These were the unspoken truths that lay beneath the shimmering veneer of Osaka's prosperity. I found myself drawn to a small stall tucked away in a quiet corner of the market. Here, Hana, a young woman with eyes as sharp as obsidian and hands as nimble as a weaver's shuttle, meticulously crafted intricate combs from dark, polished wood. Her nimble fingers worked with a practiced ease, transforming raw material into objects of exquisite beauty. Each comb was a tiny masterpiece, its delicate teeth precisely carved, its surface smooth as polished jade. Her stall was sparsely stocked, but each piece held an undeniable elegance. She seemed oblivious to the chaos around her, her world centered on her craft. She worked with a quiet intensity, her concentration unbroken by the cacophony of the marketplace. I watched her for a while, fascinated by her skill and the quiet dignity she carried herself with. The rhythmic scraping of her tools was a counterpoint to the frantic pace of the city, a meditative beat in the heart of the urban clamor. Her face, though etched with the lines of hardship, bore an unyielding strength, a reflection of her fierce independence. She wore a simple kimono, its color muted yet clean, hinting at a quiet pride that ran deeper than her outward appearance. Her eyes, though weary from countless hours of work, held a spark of unwavering determination. Hana's life, I soon learned, was a constant struggle for survival. The city, though a source of opportunity, was also a crucible of relentless competition. The rigid social hierarchies of Edo-period Japan cast a long shadow over her life, limiting her choices and circumscribing her opportunities. She was a woman of the lower classes, her social standing marked by the simplicity of her clothing and the humble nature of her trade. Each day was a fight to secure enough rice to eat, to pay the rent, and to avoid the predatory grasp of those who preyed on the vulnerable. Her skill as a comb-maker, however, was both a source of pride and a shield against the hardships of her life. Her delicate carvings, the smooth curves of her combs, spoke of a talent that transcended her humble circumstances. Her work attracted the attention of a select clientele, women from wealthier families, who appreciated the exquisite artistry of her creations. But even this success came at a cost. She was often forced to haggle fiercely over prices, her voice rising above the din of the marketplace as she defended the value of her skill and labor. The delicate balance between earning a livelihood and maintaining her dignity was a constant dance on the edge of a precipice. The city itself seemed to whisper secrets, its narrow alleyways and hidden courtyards concealing a world of intrigue and danger. Rumors of bandit attacks, of samurai duels, of political conspiracies circulated like whispers on the wind. The city was a stage upon which the drama of lives played out, a backdrop to tales of ambition, betrayal, and revenge. The rigid social hierarchies that governed every aspect of Edo Japan were particularly stark here, in a city where the gulf between the wealthy merchant class and the impoverished artisans was vast and unforgiving. Hana, with her fierce independence and unwavering resolve, was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit in the face of adversity. Her quiet determination was a counterpoint to the city's relentless dynamism, her craft a beacon in a sea of chaos. She represented a quiet strength, a quiet defiance that mirrored the tenacity of the countless others who struggled to make their lives in the bustling, unforgiving city. Her story, like that of so many others in Osaka, was a testament to the quiet dignity and unwavering courage of those who lived in the shadows of power, navigating the treacherous currents of a society built on rigid social structures and the ever-present threat of violence. Her survival, her quiet triumphs, were as much a story of Osaka's heart as the vibrant, boisterous face it presented to the world. The whispers of the city, the unspoken anxieties and hopes, found their truest reflection in the steady hands and determined spirit of Hana, the artisan. The rhythmic clang of the blacksmith's hammer faded as I left the bustling marketplace, the scent of brine giving way to the crisp, clean air of the city's more formal districts. The closer I drew to Edo Castle, the more palpable the shift in atmosphere became. The chaotic energy of Osaka's markets was replaced by a tense quietude, a hushed reverence that spoke volumes about the power concentrated within its walls. The streets here were wider, cleaner, meticulously maintained, reflecting the meticulous order imposed by the shogunate. The very architecture seemed a whisper of power and control, imposing structures of wood and plaster, their imposing facades hinting at the intricate rituals and strict hierarchies that played out within. Even the people moved differently, their steps measured, their movements precise, reflecting the ingrained etiquette of the shogun's court. There was a palpable sense of formality, an air of unspoken rules and expectations that hung heavy in the air, a silent pressure that demanded respect and obedience. The lavishly decorated palanquins, carrying high-ranking officials and dignitaries, glided silently through the streets, their bearers moving with a synchronized grace that seemed almost hypnotic. These were not mere carriages. They were symbols of power, their every movement an assertion of rank and authority. The castle itself was a breathtaking sight, an imposing fortress of immense size and complexity. Its massive walls, built of carefully fitted stones, rose up like a protective barrier, separating the inner sanctum of power from the outside world. The intricate design, with its numerous courtyards, gates, and towers, spoke of a carefully constructed system of control, each element serving a strategic purpose. The sheer scale of the castle was overwhelming, a physical manifestation of the shogun's power, his authority extending as far as the eye could see. Passing through the towering gates, I entered a world of unparalleled luxury and meticulously crafted order. The castle's interior was a labyrinth of elegant rooms and corridors, decorated with stunning works of art and exquisite furnishings. The walls were adorned with intricate paintings and calligraphy, masterpieces that spoke volumes about the refined tastes and artistic sensibilities of the ruling class. Each piece was carefully chosen, a testament to the meticulous attention to detail that characterized every aspect of court life. The gardens, serene oases of carefully arranged rocks and meticulously pruned trees, offered a moment of quiet contemplation amidst the bustle of courtly life. They were more than just aesthetically pleasing. They were symbolic representations of the delicate balance and controlled harmony of the shogunate itself. Yet, beneath the glittering veneer of elegance and order, a sense of underlying tension permeated the atmosphere. The elaborate rituals and strict protocols designed to reinforce the authority of the shogun masked a subtle yet palpable undercurrent of intrigue and power struggles. Whispers of political maneuvering, of rivalries among powerful daimyo, of ambitious courtiers vying for influence, circulated like insidious currents beneath the calm surface of courtly life. The casual cruelty of the powerful, often hidden beneath a veneer of politeness and decorum, was hinted at in the anxious glances and hushed conversations. The shogun himself remained an unseen yet potent force, his presence felt in every detail, in the unwavering adherence to protocol, in the hushed reverence of his courtiers, in the very architecture of the castle itself. He was the ultimate arbiter of power, the apex of the social pyramid, his authority absolute and unquestioned. His shadow, long and ominous, stretched across every aspect of courtly life, shaping the actions, motivations, and destinies of those who moved within its orbit. The stories whispered in the shadowed corners of the castle spoke of his unwavering resolve, his ruthless pragmatism, his almost mythical aura of power. The contrast between the opulent world of the shogun's court and the harsh realities faced by the peasant classes was stark and profound. While the elite lived in unimaginable luxury, surrounded by art and comfort, the majority toiled in the fields, enduring back-breaking labor, facing the constant threat of famine and disease. Their lives were a stark counterpoint to the splendor of Edo Castle, a reminder of the vast chasm that separated the privileged few from the masses. The carefully constructed illusion of stability and order served to mask the deep inequalities that underpinned Edo-period society, a society built on the backs of the laboring classes, their toil fueling the opulence of the shogun and his court. The delicate balance of power between the shogunate and the samurai class was another key element of this complex social structure. The samurai, the warrior class, were the backbone of the shogun's authority, their loyalty and military prowess essential to maintaining order and suppressing any dissent. However, this was a dynamic relationship, a constant negotiation of power and influence. Samurai daimyo, powerful feudal lords, held vast estates and considerable influence, often operating with a degree of autonomy that challenged the shogun's authority. The relationship between the shogun and these powerful regional lords was one of mutual dependence and simmering tension. Their loyalty was a commodity, bought and maintained through a complex web of alliances, marriages, and concessions. Any shift in this delicate balance, any weakening of the shogun's control over his daimyo, could easily lead to upheaval and instability. The elaborate rituals and ceremonies of the shogun's court were not merely expressions of cultural tradition. They were carefully constructed mechanisms of control, reinforcing the authority of the shogun and maintaining the rigid social hierarchy. The precise sequence of bows, the subtle nuances of etiquette, the strict adherence to protocol, all served to reinforce the power dynamics, reinforcing the social order and reminding everyone of their place within the intricate social tapestry. Even minor infractions could have severe consequences, underscoring the strict nature of Edo-period society. The opulent splendor of the shogun's court, therefore, was not merely a display of wealth and power. It was a powerful symbol of control, an assertion of authority that served to mask the underlying inequalities and tensions that simmered beneath the surface of this rigidly structured society. The shogun's shadow extended far beyond the walls of Edo Castle, shaping the lives and destinies of all who lived under his rule. a reminder of the precarious balance of power and the ever-present threat of conflict that lay at the heart of Edo-period Japan. The seeds of that conflict, sown in the very foundation of the shogunate itself, were slowly taking root, ready to blossom into a storm of rebellion and change. The opulent facade of Edo Castle, with its meticulously manicured gardens and exquisitely decorated interiors, offered a stark contrast to the reality experienced by the majority of Japan's population. While the shogun and his court reveled in a world of privilege and luxury, the vast majority of people lived precarious lives, constantly battling against the forces of nature and the limitations of their time. This disparity was nowhere more evident than in the matter of health and disease. A few leagues from the castle's imposing walls lay the village of Akiba, nestled in a valley where rice paddies mirrored the sky. Here, life moved at a different pace, a rhythm dictated by the seasons and the relentless demands of agriculture. The villagers, their faces etched with the hardships of their lives, lived a simple existence, their days spent in the back-breaking work of cultivating their rice fields, their nights filled with the quiet anxieties of survival. Their homes, humble structures of wood and thatch, offered little protection against the elements, and their lives were constantly threatened by the unpredictable whims of nature. Floods, droughts, and the ever-present threat of famine cast a long shadow over their existence. The arrival of the sickness was subtle at first, a cough here, a fever there. At first, it was dismissed as a common ailment, a temporary inconvenience in the relentless cycle of labor. But as days turned into weeks, the true nature of the affliction revealed itself with terrifying clarity. It was smallpox, a disease as merciless as it was indiscriminate, and it swept through the village like a wildfire. Taro, a young farmer known for his strength and diligence, was among the first to succumb. His initial symptoms, a mild fever, a persistent cough, were quickly followed by a devastating eruption of pustules that covered his body. His skin, once the color of sun-baked earth, became inflamed, his eyes swollen shut. The once vibrant young man was reduced to a shadow of his former self, his body racked with pain, his breathing labored. His wife Hana, a woman of quiet strength and unwavering devotion, nursed him tirelessly, her heart heavy with fear and despair. She meticulously cleaned his wounds, offering him whatever meager comfort she could, but her efforts seemed futile against the relentless onslaught of the disease. The small village apothecary Old Man Ito, his knowledge gleaned from generations of family practice and dusty scrolls, offered only limited remedies, herbal concoctions that provided little more than a temporary respite from the pain. There was no hope to be found in the village's limited medicine. It held no power against the disease's wrath. The crude surgical practices, a brutal attempt at scarification, served only to offer more pain in place of cure. As Taro's condition deteriorated, so did the health of the entire village. The disease spread rapidly, jumping from one family to the next, leaving a trail of suffering and death in its wake. Children, their cries piercing the night, lay feverish and weak, their parents watching helplessly as the disease ravaged their tiny bodies. Adults, their faces contorted in pain, battled for breath, their bodies covered in weeping sores. The simple act of tending to the afflicted became an exercise in courage, a desperate struggle against both the disease and the despair it engendered. The village, once a scene of quiet activity, transformed into a landscape of suffering. The rhythmic thud of farming tools was replaced by the mournful cries of the sick and the solemn silence of death. The communal spirit, usually a source of strength and resilience, was severely tested as fear replaced familiarity and despair settled over hope. Yet, even in the face of such overwhelming tragedy, the villagers rallied together, their shared adversity forging an unexpected bond of unity. Women, their hands calloused from years of toil, tended to the sick with tireless devotion. Men, their faces grim with determination, carried the dead to the village burial ground, their bodies and hearts worn down from weeks of relentless grief and ceaseless work. Children, though burdened by their own fears, offered what small comfort they could, their youthful innocence tempered by the harsh realities of their circumstances. The community shared whatever resources they had, pooling their meager supplies of food and medicine. They established a makeshift infirmary in the village temple, transforming the sacred space into a refuge for the suffering. The air, thick with the smell of sickness and desperation, held a palpable sense of collective grief. Despite their collective efforts, death held sway over the village of Akiba. Each passing day brought with it a new wave of heartbreak, a fresh reminder of the disease's relentless power. The village elders, their faces etched with years of hardship, struggled to maintain order and hope in the midst of chaos and loss. Their traditional rites and prayers, usually a source of comfort and stability, offered little solace against the grim realities of the epidemic. As the outbreak reached its peak, there was a palpable sense of powerlessness. The villagers, accustomed to relying on their own strength and resilience, found themselves helpless against a force far more formidable than any they had faced before. Their faith in their own abilities was shaken, their traditional worldview challenged. The experience, however, was not merely one of despair. The hardships endured forged a sense of community, a bond of solidarity born out of shared suffering. Amid the death and despair, there was a quiet heroism, a demonstration of the human spirit's ability to endure, even in the face of overwhelming tragedy. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a resilience tempered by the harsh realities of their time. The experience of the smallpox epidemic left an indelible mark on Akiba, transforming the village and its people, forever shaping their collective memory. This was one of the many silent struggles hidden beneath the shimmering surface of the shogunate's power. The seeds of rebellion might be sown in other places, but this quiet tragedy showed how the harsh realities of life outside Edo Castle played out in the hearts and lives of ordinary people. The shadow of illness, like the shadow of the shogun himself, loomed large over every aspect of their lives. The oppressive heat of the late summer sun beat down on the backs of the Akiba villagers as they bent double in the rice paddies. Their movements were slow, deliberate, each gesture a testament to the relentless labor required to coax a meager harvest from the unforgiving earth. The air hung heavy with the scent of ripening rice and sweat, a cloying perfume that masked the underlying anxiety that permeated the village. This year, the harvest promised to be leaner than most. The monsoon rains had been erratic, arriving late and departing too soon, leaving the paddies parched for crucial weeks. The rice stalks, once robust and green, were now stunted and pale, their heads bowed in defeat. Even the most seasoned farmers, men and women whose lives were intrinsically woven with the rhythm of the seasons, felt a deep sense of foreboding. The whispers of famine, once a distant murmur, now echoed through the village with chilling clarity. Taro, though still recovering from the ravages of smallpox, forced himself to work alongside his neighbors. The lingering weakness in his limbs served as a constant reminder of his brush with death, but the looming threat of starvation instilled a different kind of fear, a gnawing dread that gnawed at his insides. His cough, though subsided, returned with each deep breath, a persistent ache in his chest that mirrored the anxieties within his heart. He watched Hana, her face etched with worry, struggling to keep pace with the other women. The worry lines around her eyes deepened with each passing day, reflecting the burden of their precarious existence. The harvest was a grueling affair, each grain of rice a testament to their relentless effort. Their hands, roughened and calloused from years of toil, bled from the sharp edges of the harvesting tools. Their backs ached, their bodies screamed in protest, yet they pressed on, driven by the primal instinct to survive. The children, too young to fully understand the gravity of their situation, helped where they could, their small hands gathering stray stalks of rice, their faces solemn beyond their years. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the paddies, the villagers gathered their meager harvest. The bundles of rice, thinner and smaller than in previous years, were carried back to the village on weary shoulders, the weight of their labor mirrored by the weight of their anxieties. The yield was barely enough to feed the village for the coming months, and the winter loomed large, threatening to swallow them whole. That night, as the villagers huddled around meager fires, the reality of their situation sank in. The faces around Taro and Hana were gaunt and drawn, their eyes reflecting the fear that haunted their hearts. The usually jovial chatter was replaced by a heavy silence, broken only by the occasional sigh or the crackling of the flames. The threat of starvation was no longer a hypothetical concern. It was a palpable presence. a shadow that threatened to consume them. The meager harvest was barely enough to sustain the village through the winter. The rice, barely enough to fill the family's clay pots, was carefully rationed, each grain meticulously counted. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs, a constant reminder of their precarious existence. Even the children, their innocence stolen by their circumstances, knew the meaning of hunger. Their laughter, once a bright thread woven into the fabric of their lives, had faded into a hushed whisper. Desperation, a creeping tendril of rebellion, began to take root in the hearts of the villagers. The whispers of discontent, once hushed and fearful, now carried a harder edge. The traditional reverence for authority, once absolute, began to crumble under the weight of their despair. Acts of subtle defiance, a few extra grains of rice secretly taken from the communal storehouse, a surreptitious raid on a nearby landowner's field, were not uncommon, a desperate attempt to stave off the gnawing emptiness in their bellies. One evening, Taro and Hana found themselves drawn into a clandestine gathering of villagers, huddled in the shadows of the village temple. The air was thick with anxiety, with hushed whispers of rebellion against the unfair system that condemned them to such a life. The land, their land, belonged to the shogun and the wealthy landowners who held them in their thrall. Their labor was exploited, their rewards meager, and their voices unheard. The whispers spoke of a deeper discontent, a simmering anger that could easily boil over into something more. They spoke of taking back what was rightfully theirs, of reclaiming their dignity and their means of survival. Taro, weak yet resolute, listened intently. He had always been a man of peace, a man of the land, but the gnawing hunger and the desperate plight of his fellow villagers stirred something within him, a spark of resistance that burned bright in the darkness of despair. The upcoming winter loomed over the village like a monstrous predator, but within that predator, within the desperate struggles of the peasantry, the faintest glimmer of defiance ignited. Their hope might be slim, their future uncertain, but the seeds of change had been sown, nurtured by the unrelenting pressure of hunger and the crushing weight of poverty. The harvest of sorrow, however, might yet yield unexpected fruit. The quiet desperation that simmered beneath the surface of daily life offered a glimpse into the simmering potential for upheaval. The land, the rice, and the sheer will to survive were becoming unlikely weapons against the injustice that had bound them for so long. The quiet acts of rebellion might be small, but they were the first steps towards a future where the harvest would be one of hope, not sorrow. The path ahead remained fraught with danger, but for the first time, a flicker of defiance burned brightly in the hearts of the villagers of Akiba. The silence of acceptance had been broken. The quiet whispers of revolution had begun. The biting wind whipped across the training grounds, carrying with it the scent of pine and the metallic tang of blood. Kenji, his breath misting in the frigid air, stood poised, his katana gleaming under the pale winter sun. Opposite him, Sensei Ito, a veteran of countless battles, stood as still as a statue, his own blade a menacing extension of his steely gaze. This was not a mere sparring match. This was Kenji's trial by fire, a crucible forged in the harsh realities of samurai life. Failure was not an option. Failure meant dishonor, and dishonor, in the rigid code of the samurai, was a death sentence. The air crackled with tension, a palpable energy that vibrated through the frozen earth. Kenji's heart hammered against his ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence. He had trained relentlessly, honing his skills until his muscles ached and his hands bled. Yet, facing Ito, a man whose legend was whispered in hushed tones throughout the dojo, a tremor of fear, a cold prickle of apprehension, ran down his spine. Ito was not just a teacher, he was a living embodiment of the samurai spirit, a testament to the unwavering dedication, the ruthless discipline, and the unwavering loyalty demanded of a warrior. The duel commenced not with a roar or a shout, but with a silent, deadly grace. Ito's movements were deceptively fluid, each step, each shift of weight, precise and economical. His blade, a masterpiece of forged steel, moved with a terrifying swiftness, a blur of honed metal that seemed to anticipate Kenji's every move. Kenji, despite his apprehension, met the challenge with a steely resolve. His own movements honed by years of rigorous training, he parried, dodged, and riposted with a speed and precision that surprised even himself. The clash of steel echoed across the training grounds, a symphony of destruction. Each parry a desperate gamble, each riposte a calculated risk. The duel was a dance of death, a ballet of blades, each movement a testament to the samurai's unwavering commitment to honor and duty. It was a test not just of physical skill, but of mental fortitude, of the unwavering resolve required to face death without flinching. Kenji found himself drawn into the mesmerizing rhythm of the fight, his mind emptied of everything except the immediate threat, the glint of steel, and the relentless pursuit of victory. Every fiber of his being was focused on the duel, every muscle tense, every nerve on high alert. Sweat stung his eyes, blurring his vision, but he fought through the pain, driven by an unwavering determination. He remembered the countless hours of practice, the sacrifices made, the unwavering commitment to the samurai way. This was not just a fight for survival, it was a fight for his honor, for his family's name, for his very soul. The weight of expectation, the legacy of generations of samurai pressed down upon him, a crushing burden he had to carry. Ito, sensing Kenji's growing strength, pressed his attack, his movements growing more aggressive, more relentless. The pressure mounted, the psychological weight of the duel becoming almost unbearable. The clash of steel intensified, the air filled with the screech of metal on metal, the rhythmic thud of feet on the frozen ground. Each parry was a victory, each riposte a desperate gamble, the margin between success and failure becoming ever narrower. A moment of hesitation, a fraction of a second's lapse in concentration, could mean the end. Kenji knew this, felt it in the very marrow of his bones. He fought not just with his body, but with his mind, his spirit, drawing strength from the deep well of his samurai heritage. He was a vessel, a conduit for the strength and courage of his ancestors, each swing of his blade carrying the weight of generations. The duel became a desperate struggle for survival, a test of will as much as a test of skill. Suddenly, an opening appeared, a fleeting opportunity, a chink in Ito's seemingly impenetrable defense. Kenji seized the moment, his blade flashing out with breathtaking speed, a lightning strike that found its mark. The impact was brutal, a jarring shock that reverberated through his arm, but he held firm, his grip unwavering. Ito staggered back, his blade falling from his grasp, his eyes wide with a mixture of surprise and grudging respect. The duel was over. Kenji stood victorious, his breath ragged, his body trembling with exhaustion, but his spirit soaring. He had faced death and emerged triumphant, proving his worth, earning his place amongst the elite samurai. The silence that followed was profound, broken only by the wind whistling through the bare branches of the pines. Ito, despite his defeat, approached Kenji, his eyes holding a flicker of admiration. He nodded once, a silent acknowledgement of Kenji's skill and courage. The trial by fire was over. Kenji had passed. But the victory was bittersweet. The victory held within its glow a new understanding. The path of a samurai was a life of constant challenge, of relentless self-improvement, of relentless pursuit of excellence. The duel was not an end but a beginning, a testament to the constant vigilance, the unwavering dedication, and the self-sacrifice required to maintain honor in the face of adversity. Kenji's journey had just begun. The trials to come would be as arduous and perilous, even more demanding than the duel he had just survived. The peace he found, nestled in the achievement of his trial, offered him but a fleeting respite before the next challenge arose, demanding his unwavering commitment and resolute spirit. The path of the samurai was a never-ending ascent, a constant striving for perfection, a journey that demanded the absolute devotion of body and soul. The silence, after the battle, held the weight of all that yet lay ahead, a stark reminder of the endless challenges that await those who embrace the warrior's path. The crisp autumn air carried the scent of wood smoke and drying persimmons, a stark contrast to the chill that had settled over Kenji's bones after his duel. He sat now, wrapped in a thick woolen robe, sipping lukewarm sake as the setting sun painted the sky in hues of orange and purple. His victory, though hard-won, felt distant, a dream from a life seemingly lived long ago. The reality of his existence, the weight of his responsibilities, pressed down upon him once more. His thoughts drifted to Hana, his younger sister, her face a constant worry etched in his mind. Her plight was a stark reminder that the trials of a samurai were not the only ones that tested the spirit. Hana, unlike Kenji, had never known the structured discipline of the dojo. Her world was not one of flashing steel and controlled fury, but of quiet resilience, subtle maneuvering, and a constant struggle for survival. She worked as a seamstress, her nimble fingers weaving intricate patterns into silk, creating garments for the wealthy merchants and samurai wives of the city. Her income, meager as it was the lifeblood of their family, providing the rice, miso, and meager vegetables that kept them from starvation. But lately, the work had dried up. The city, usually bustling with activity, seemed to have fallen silent. The merchants were tightening their purses, the samurai wives parsimonious with their orders. The whispers of famine, once a distant fear, now echoed ominously through the narrow, twisting streets. Hana's small room, tucked away in a cramped alleyway, felt colder, more oppressive with each passing day. The meager fire in the brazier struggled to ward off the encroaching cold, mirroring the dwindling hope in Hana's heart. Her landlord, a gruff, unsympathetic man named Taro, was growing impatient. He'd already threatened eviction if she didn't settle her rent arrears soon. The thought sent a shiver down her spine. Eviction meant the streets, a harsh, unforgiving landscape where survival was a daily struggle. It meant starvation, disease, and the constant threat of violence. The thought of her younger siblings, frail and vulnerable, sent a wave of nausea through her. Hana spent sleepless nights, her mind racing, searching for solutions. She considered selling her mother's prized kimono, a vibrant silk masterpiece woven with threads of gold, a relic that held precious memories of a time before hardship had descended upon their family. But even that would only provide temporary relief. The kimono, a cherished family heirloom, was the last tangible link to a happier past. One evening, while gathering water from the well, she overheard a hushed conversation between two merchants. They spoke of a wealthy merchant, Lord Masamune, who was hosting a lavish party for his daughter's coming-of-age celebration. The party was renowned for its extravagance, and rumors of valuable gifts given to those who impressed the merchant circulated through the poorer quarters. An idea, bold and audacious, began to form in Hana's mind. It was a gamble, a dangerous game, one that could easily lead to ruin, but desperation fueled her resolve. She possessed a talent beyond her needlework. She possessed a natural grace, an ability to read people, a cunning mind that had always served her well in navigating the labyrinthine social structures of the city. She decided to use these hidden talents to create a gambit, a daring plan that would allow her to secure the family's future. She spent days meticulously planning, every detail meticulously considered. She would need to create something extraordinary, something that would capture Lord Masamune's attention and earn her a generous reward. She wouldn't merely sew, she would create a masterpiece, a garment fit for a princess, a testament to her skill and creativity. But to achieve this, she needed resources, finer silks, more exquisite threads, resources far beyond her means. This meant she needed to play a dangerous game, navigating the intricate web of city politics, possibly even bending the rules, relying on her charm and ingenuity. She began by discreetly approaching a merchant friend, a kind woman named Kinu, who often provided Hana with scraps of silk for her projects. Kinu, touched by Hana's desperation and impressed by her talent, agreed to help, providing Hana with some of the finest silk she had. Hana worked tirelessly, day and night, her fingers flying across the silken fabric. She poured her heart and soul into the garment, weaving intricate designs, embellishing it with precious beads and threads. It wasn't merely a dress, it was a testament to her spirit, her determination, her unwavering loyalty to her family. The night of the party arrived, a whirlwind of anticipation and anxiety. Hana, adorned in a simple but elegant kimono, carefully carried her creation in a lacquered box. The grand entrance to Lord Masamune's residence was awe-inspiring, a world away from her humble alleyway. Guards stood at the entrance, their faces impassive, their gazes piercing. Hana's heart hammered in her chest, but she held her head high, her demeanor calm and confident. She managed to smoothly navigate the intricate social customs, subtly charming the guards with her grace and charm, gaining entrance to the lavish festivity. The party was a kaleidoscope of vibrant colors and dazzling sounds, silks shimmering under the candlelight, laughter echoing through the opulent rooms, and the clinking of sake cups providing a rhythmic backdrop to the extravagant celebration. She approached Lord Masamune with a confident smile, her movements graceful and assured. She presented him with the box containing her creation, a whispered introduction carefully crafted and delivered. He opened the box, his eyes widening in astonishment at the sight of the exquisite garment within. For a moment, the noise of the party faded away, replaced by a palpable silence as Lord Masamune examined the dress. He examined the fabric, its intricate pattern, and the subtle craftsmanship. His gaze lingered on the details, the delicate embroidery, the sparkling beads, the perfect stitching. The piece whispered a tale of dedication, artistry, and talent. A deep sense of admiration washed across his features. The silence stretched, tense with anticipation. After a moment that felt like an eternity, Lord Masamune looked up, a slow smile spreading across his face. He spoke a few words, his voice low and appreciative, his tone filled with genuine admiration. He asked about her craft, her origins, her motivation. Hana answered his questions with grace and intelligence, weaving a captivating narrative that concealed her desperation while highlighting her talent and her loyalty to her family. Lord Masamune's decision hung in the balance. He offered her an amount of money that far surpassed her wildest expectations, enough to pay the rent, buy food for her family for months, and even offer a small surplus to secure a more stable future. A wave of relief washed over Hana, a sense of gratitude and accomplishment. She had played her gambit, and she had won. But as she walked out of Lord Masamune's grand residence, she knew that even though she had won this battle, the war for survival was far from over. The city held many more challenges, and the ever-present threat of famine cast a long shadow over her future. The night held a new kind of peace, the quiet satisfaction of success, laced with the ever-present undercurrent of precarity. The uncertainty of tomorrow weighed on her, a constant reminder of the precarious balance between survival and ruin in the world of Edo-period Japan. Her path, though slightly smoother now, was still long and arduous, a relentless journey towards a future that remained uncertain. The flickering candlelight cast long, dancing shadows across the polished wood floors of the shogun's inner sanctum. Lord Iemitsu, the shogun, sat rigidly on his ornate dais, his gaze sweeping across the assembled court officials. The air hung heavy with unspoken tensions, a palpable sense of unease that prickled the skin even beneath layers of fine silk. The official pronouncements, the carefully worded decrees, the meticulously choreographed rituals, all were a carefully constructed facade masking the simmering cauldron of ambition and resentment that brewed beneath the surface of the court. Whispers, like venomous snakes, slithered through the ranks of the assembled nobles. Rumors of discontent within the ranks of the samurai, of simmering resentment among the daimyo towards the shogun's policies, circulated with the speed of wildfire. The whispers spoke of secret alliances, of clandestine meetings held under the cover of darkness, of plots hashed in the shadowy corners of the capital. These were not mere idle gossips. They were carefully planted seeds of discord, designed to sow chaos and weaken the shogun's authority. One such rumor concerned Lord Matsudaira, a powerful daimyo with a reputation for both ruthlessness and ambition. It was said that he secretly harbored designs on the shogunate, that he was amassing a private army, preparing for a coup that would topple the reigning shogun and place him on the throne. The whispers suggested that he was secretly courting the support of several disaffected daimyo, promising them land and power in exchange for their loyalty. This rumor, though unsubstantiated, created a chilling ripple effect throughout the court, leaving many nobles fearful and uncertain. Their loyalty, once seemingly unwavering, now felt fragile, susceptible to the allure of power and the promise of a better future under a new regime. Another rumor centered around the shogun's own inner circle, the men he trusted most. It was whispered that Lord Honda, the shogun's chief advisor, had been secretly undermining his master, leaking sensitive information to opposing factions, and maneuvering to consolidate his own power behind the scenes. Some whispered that Honda was secretly colluding with Lord Matsudaira, playing a double game, using his proximity to the shogun to sow chaos and advance his own ambition. This rumor, if true, represented a far greater threat than any external rebellion, as it indicated a profound betrayal at the heart of the shogunate itself. The delicate balance of power within the court hung precariously on a thread. Each official, from the highest-ranking daimyo to the lowest-ranking courtier, was engaged in a complex game of chess, making calculated moves, anticipating countermoves, and trying to maintain their position amidst the swirling currents of political intrigue. Alliances shifted, loyalties were tested, and betrayals were commonplace. It was a world where smiles could mask daggers, where flattery could be a weapon, and where the slightest misstep could lead to ruin. The fragility of the shogunate's peace was underscored by the constant threat of assassination. The samurai, known for their unwavering loyalty and fierce honor, were also capable of acts of incredible brutality, especially when motivated by ambition or revenge. Rumors of planned assassinations were commonplace, whispered in hushed tones in the dimly lit corridors of the palace. The lives of high-ranking officials were never truly safe. The threat of a poisoned cup of sake or a sudden blade in the darkness was ever present. Even the shogun himself was not immune to the ever-present danger. The shogun's court was not just a place of political maneuvering. It was a stage where the most intricate dramas of human ambition and betrayal were played out. The players were not just political leaders. They were human beings driven by emotions, desires, and fears that were as potent as any political strategy. The whispers that echoed through the palace were a testament to the pervasive insecurity, the intense struggle for power, and the inherent fragility of even the most seemingly stable regime. The intricate web of alliances and rivalries within the court held the fate of the nation in its delicate balance. The stories of these courtly intrigues were often embellished with elements of folklore and superstition, making them all the more intriguing and terrifying. It was said that certain corridors of the palace were haunted by the ghosts of fallen officials, their restless spirits forever bound to the scene of their deaths. Some whispered that powerful onmagis, masters of the occult arts, were involved in the political machinations, employing their supernatural powers to influence the course of events. These elements of the supernatural, woven into the fabric of political life, only served to heighten the sense of uncertainty and fear that permeated the court. Every creak of the palace floors, every rustle of silk, could ignite a fresh wave of anxiety, as courtiers imagined hidden assassins or vengeful spirits lurking in the shadows. The tension was not merely confined to the upper echelons of society. The common people of Edo also felt the ripples of this political instability. Rumors of impending war, of famine, of economic collapse spread quickly through the city's teeming alleys and crowded streets. The price of rice fluctuated wildly, reflecting the anxieties of the population. The merchants, always attuned to the slightest shift in the political winds, adjusted their prices accordingly, causing further distress among the poorer classes. The quiet desperation of the ordinary citizens, unseen and unheard by the elite within the palace walls, provided a counterpoint to the drama playing out in the shogun's court. Even seemingly insignificant events within the court were magnified and distorted by the pervasive atmosphere of suspicion and paranoia. A seemingly innocent conversation between two officials could be interpreted as a secret conspiracy. A casual glance could be deemed a threat, and a misplaced document could spark a full-blown investigation. Truth and falsehood became hopelessly intertwined, making it difficult to distinguish between genuine threat and carefully constructed rumor. The very fabric of reality seemed to warp and twist in the suffocating atmosphere of the shogun's court, making life there a constant exercise in vigilance, suspicion, and self-preservation. The ceaseless whisperings and rumors not only threatened the stability of the shogunate, but also exposed the human cost of political ambition. Lives were ruined, families were torn apart, and loyalties were betrayed in the relentless pursuit of power. The moral compass often became obscured in the murky waters of political intrigue, blurring the lines between right and wrong. The court's intricate social hierarchy became a stage for a ruthless, often amoral, struggle for dominance. In this world, even seemingly innocuous actions held potential consequences. A seemingly casual conversation overheard in a corridor, a misplaced document, or a hesitant bow could become the catalyst for a disastrous chain of events. The court officials, acutely aware of this, constantly monitored each other, calculating risks and trying to anticipate their opponents' moves. This created an atmosphere of extreme tension, where everyone was a potential enemy and trust was a luxury few could afford. The constant pressure of maintaining appearances, of projecting an image of calm and control, even in the face of impending disaster, weighed heavily on those trapped within the web of courtly intrigue. The fate of the shogunate, and indeed the nation, hung precariously in the balance, dependent upon the whims and ambitions of the men and women inhabiting the shogun's court. The whispers of rebellion, the rumors of coups, and the constant threat of assassination all painted a picture of a society teetering on the edge of chaos. Yet the court continued its rituals, the elaborate ceremonies masking the deep anxieties that lay beneath the surface. The fragile peace, held together by delicate threads of power and fear, could easily unravel at any moment, unleashing a torrent of violence and instability. The story of the shogun's court was a testament to the human capacity for both extraordinary achievement and devastating self-destruction. The shadows of intrigue and ambition stretched long, obscuring the future and casting doubt on the tenuous stability of the Edo period. The suffocating weight of tradition pressed down on Edo-era Japan like a physical burden, shaping every aspect of life from birth to death. This wasn't merely a matter of customs and etiquette. It was a deeply ingrained social order, a rigid hierarchy that dictated every interaction and opportunity. For the commoners, life was a relentless cycle of toil, dictated by the seasons and the demands of their feudal lords. Their days began before dawn and ended long after dusk, punctuated by the rhythmic swing of sickles in the rice paddies or the relentless pounding of hammers in the workshops. The meager rice-based diet, often supplemented with meager vegetables and fish if available, barely provided enough sustenance to maintain their arduous labor. The constant threat of famine, ever present in the back of their minds, cast a long shadow over their existence, intensifying their precarious circumstances. Even the smallest deviations from established norms could have dire consequences. A peasant caught poaching on a lord's land faced severe punishment, ranging from fines and whipping to imprisonment or even death. The rigidly defined social boundaries prevented any form of upward mobility, trapping generations in a cycle of poverty and servitude. Their lives were a testament to the brutal efficiency of the system, where individual aspirations were routinely sacrificed at the altar of tradition. Individuality was stifled, creativity suppressed, and any thought of rebellion quickly extinguished by the iron fist of authority. Their world was one of relentless obedience, where the only path was the well-worn furrow of their prescribed roles. For the samurai, the weight of tradition manifested differently, yet it was equally oppressive. Their lives were governed by the Bushido Code, a demanding moral code that emphasized loyalty, honor, and self-sacrifice. This code demanded unwavering devotion to their lord, even unto death. The constant threat of conflict, whether internal rivalries within their own ranks or external battles against neighboring clans, created a culture of violence and brutality. The idealized image of the honorable warrior, stoic and unflinching in the face of danger, masked the deep anxieties and uncertainties of their existence. The relentless pressure to maintain their honor was a constant source of stress. A single act of perceived dishonor could lead to severe consequences, including loss of status, banishment, or even seppuku, ritual suicide. The samurai, bound by their strict code, faced a constant internal battle between their personal desires and their social obligation. The rigid structure of the samurai class, with its clearly defined hierarchy and strict rules of conduct, left little room for personal expression or individuality. Even their leisure activities were strictly regulated, reflecting the pervasive nature of tradition in their lives. While they might enjoy swordsmanship practice or equestrian pursuits, even these activities served to reinforce their warrior identity, shaping their characters to conform to the ideals of the Bushido Code. The burden of tradition was perhaps most acutely felt by the court officials, who navigated the treacherous waters of political intrigue within the shogun's court. Their lives were characterized by meticulous adherence to etiquette, a complex system of rituals and courtesies that governed every interaction. The slightest deviation from these established norms could lead to misinterpretations and accusations, jeopardizing their careers and even their lives. The court officials lived in a world of constant suspicion, where loyalty was often a fleeting commodity and trust was a dangerous illusion. The elaborate tea ceremonies, meticulously orchestrated performances of grace and refinement, were not just social events, they were power plays, subtle tests of character and intelligence, all within a framework of ancient traditions. Even seemingly inconsequential tasks, such as the serving of tea or the arranging of flowers, were imbued with deep symbolic meaning, reflecting the hierarchical structure of courtly life. The precision and formality that governed these rituals underscored the immense social pressure on court officials to perform flawlessly, to avoid any misstep that might betray their social standing or loyalty. To err was not merely human, but a serious social transgression with profound consequences. Even the architecture of Edo reflected the pervasive influence of tradition. The tightly packed streets, the meticulously crafted homes, and the imposing castles all adhered to established patterns and styles that had evolved over centuries. The uniform aesthetic of the city, with its carefully preserved temples and shrines, emphasized the continuity of the past, a powerful symbol of the enduring weight of tradition. There was little space for innovation or experimentation, as the prevailing ethos prioritized conformity and the preservation of existing structures. The consequences of deviating from established norms extended beyond mere social disapproval. The legal system, itself a product of tradition, was harsh and unforgiving. Punishments were often brutal, reflecting the severity with which the established order viewed any transgressions. The emphasis on collective responsibility further intensified the pressure to conform. Families were often held accountable for the actions of individual members, reinforcing the social mechanisms that ensured compliance. This system, while seemingly rigid and inflexible, served to maintain social order and uphold the established hierarchy. This pervasive emphasis on tradition, while maintaining stability, also created a society where individual aspirations were frequently sacrificed at the altar of social conformity. Creativity and innovation were often stifled by the weight of expectation, resulting in a culture that prized obedience and adherence to established norms above all else. While the rigid social structures of Edo-era Japan provided a sense of order and stability, they also imposed limitations on individuals, restricting their freedoms and opportunities irrespective of their social standing. The pursuit of individual fulfillment, even for those in positions of power, was often overshadowed by the unwavering pressure to adhere to the deeply ingrained traditions that governed every aspect of life. The narrative of Edo-era Japan is a compelling exploration of the human cost of tradition, a testament to the complexities of a society caught between the need for stability and the yearning for individual expression. It highlights the contradictions inherent in a system that valued order and conformity, while simultaneously producing individuals who strived for recognition and personal fulfillment, despite the limitations placed upon them. The weight of tradition, while seemingly immutable, ultimately shaped the destinies of both the powerful and the powerless, influencing their actions, their choices, and their very sense of self. This intricate dance between tradition and individuality formed the fabric of Edo-era Japan, its impact resonating across centuries and leaving an enduring legacy on Japanese culture and identity. The enduring power of tradition, therefore, is not just a historical artifact. It is a force that continues to shape perceptions, values, and the very fabric of Japanese society to this day, its echoes resonating in the present. The enduring legacy of Edo-era Japan serves as a reminder of the profound ways in which tradition can both sustain and constrict a society, a complex interplay that continues to shape human experience. The first snowflakes, delicate and deceptive, danced down from the steely gray sky, painting the landscape in a deceptively beautiful veneer of white. But this was no gentle dusting. This was the prelude to a winter of unparalleled severity, a merciless grip that would test the limits of human endurance. For Taro and his family, nestled in their humble dwelling amongst the other thatched roof houses of the village, the arrival of winter was not a season of festive cheer, but a chilling harbinger of hardship. The rice paddies, once vibrant green, were now frozen solid, a stark reminder of the meager harvest that barely sustained them through the autumn. The meager stores of rice, carefully preserved in the family's earthenware jars, dwindled with each passing day, the grains becoming a precious commodity, measured out with an agonizing slowness. The thin, worn clothing offered little protection against the biting wind that howled through the cracks in the walls, seeping into their bones like icy tendrils. Nights were a battle against the cold. The family huddled together for warmth, their breaths misting in the frigid air, their bodies shivering under layers of patched-up kimonos and straw mats. The meager fire in the hearth, fueled by scarce wood scraps gathered from the frozen forest, flickered weakly, casting long, dancing shadows on the earthen walls. Even with this feeble source of heat, the chill permeated everything, clinging to their skin like a shroud. Taro's father, a man weathered by years of back-breaking labor, coughed incessantly, his lungs struggling against the bitter cold and the lingering effects of a summer illness. His wife, her face etched with worry lines that spoke of countless sleepless nights, worked tirelessly to keep the family warm and fed, her hands rough and chapped from the constant exposure to the elements. Their younger children, their small bodies bundled in layers of clothing, whimpered in their sleep, their tiny breaths visible in the frosty air. The children's hunger was almost unbearable. They woke frequently during the night, crying for food. The village, once a lively hub of activity, was now shrouded in a palpable sense of despair. The normally bustling marketplace was deserted, the vibrant colors of the stalls replaced by a monochrome palette of snow and ice. The laughter of children was replaced by the mournful creak of the wind, a constant reminder of their plight. The faces of the villagers reflected their desperation, their eyes hollowed out by hunger and exhaustion. The usual resilient spirit of the community, once a bulwark against hardship, was slowly being eroded by the relentless onslaught of winter's grip. One evening, as the wind howled like a starving wolf, a shadow fell across the family's meager meal of boiled roots and a few withered greens. It was the village elder, his face lined and pale, his eyes reflecting the despair of the community. He brought with him news that would plunge the family into even deeper despair. The winter's severity was unprecedented. The mountain passes blocked by snowdrifts, the transport of rice from the distant granaries impossible. Starvation threatened not just Taro's family, but the entire village. The elder's words hung heavy in the air, heavier than the ever-present snow. The family sat in silence, the reality of their situation sinking in with each passing moment. The meager supplies were not enough to survive until spring. The prospect of starvation loomed, a cold, inescapable specter that threatened to extinguish their lives. Days bled into nights, each marked by the ever-decreasing amount of food, by the growing weakness of Taro's father, by the increasingly desperate pleas of his younger siblings. The family's once bright eyes were now dull and listless, their movements slowed, their bodies weakened by hunger. The hope that had sustained them through countless hardships was beginning to fade, replaced by a chilling sense of despair. Taro, despite his young age, felt the crushing weight of responsibility settle upon his shoulders. He watched his family deteriorate before his eyes, the stark reality of their situation forcing him to confront a terrible truth. They might not survive the winter unless he acted. He knew of stories of villagers venturing to the distant mountain passes, risking their lives to search for food, for any means to stave off starvation. He knew the risks were immense: treacherous paths, the ever-present danger of avalanches, and the unforgiving elements. But he also knew that inaction meant certain death for his family. He spent sleepless nights wrestling with this agonizing decision, his youthful idealism battling the grim reality of their predicament. He knew the risks were substantial, that a wrong step could mean death on the unforgiving mountain. Yet, the image of his family, frail and weak, haunted his dreams. He saw their pale faces and their hollow eyes, a silent plea that resonated deep within his soul. Could he, a young man, still finding his footing in the world, be the one to save them? The weight of the decision was unbearable. He knew that his choice could determine the fate of his entire family, a responsibility that dwarfed even the most strenuous tasks he had faced in his young life. The cold wind whistled a mournful tune outside, echoing the turmoil raging within his heart. This decision, he knew, would mark a pivotal point in his life, a turning point that would change him and his family forever. The choice before him was not simply a matter of survival. It was a crossroads of fate. He looked at his family, his father's labored breaths filling the silence, and he knew what he had to do. The coming dawn would mark the beginning of his perilous journey, a desperate attempt to stave off the icy grasp of winter and the inescapable specter of famine. The fate of his family hung precariously in the balance, resting solely on his young, determined shoulders. The harsh winter had not just brought a chilling blast of snow and ice. It had brought a test of courage and resolve unlike any other, a trial that would forge his character in the fires of desperate survival. The biting wind whipped at Kenji's kimono, a stark contrast to the warmth of the hearth he'd left behind. He'd spent the last hour wrestling with a decision that gnawed at his conscience, a conflict that echoed the relentless howling wind. Lord Masamune, a man known for his iron fist and even colder heart, had ordered the eviction of the villagers of Aomori, their humble homes to be razed to make way for a new hunting lodge. The villagers, already struggling under the weight of the harsh winter, faced the unthinkable: homelessness, starvation, and death. Kenji, a samurai of relatively low rank, but one who'd spent his formative years amongst the villagers, felt a kinship with them that transcended the rigid social hierarchy. He'd played with their children, shared meals with their families, and witnessed their unwavering resilience in the face of adversity. The order to displace them felt like a betrayal, a violation of the unspoken contract that bound the samurai to their people, a contract often ignored by the higher echelons of power. The samurai code, Bushino, preached loyalty, honor, and courage. But what of the honor in displacing innocent people, leaving them to the mercy of a merciless winter? What courage was there in following a cruel order, especially one that went against his own moral compass? Kenji found himself questioning the very tenets of the code he had sworn to uphold, the code that had defined his life since his early childhood training. He remembered his training days, the rigorous physical demands, the relentless drills, the unwavering emphasis on unquestioning obedience. But they hadn't taught him about the ethical complexities of obedience when it conflicted with his innate sense of justice. This was not a battlefield where he faced a legitimate enemy, but a cold, calculated act of oppression against innocent farmers. The conflict raged within him. He could obey Lord Masamune, fulfill his duty as a samurai, and preserve his position and perhaps even advance his career. This path, though morally repugnant, would ensure his own survival and that of his family. But the thought of abandoning the villagers to their fate left a bitter taste in his mouth, a feeling that would haunt him for the rest of his life. Alternatively, he could defy his lord. This would be an act of open rebellion, an almost certain path to disgrace, dishonor, and possibly even death through seppuku, ritual suicide. The consequences were unthinkable, a reality he could not ignore. His wife Hana and their young son Hiroki depended on him, their lives intertwined with his. He couldn't afford to be reckless. Their survival depended on his choices. He paced his small quarters, his thoughts a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. The flickering candlelight cast elongated shadows, making the small room feel even smaller, amplifying the claustrophobia of his moral dilemma. He traced the lines on his worn katana, the steel cold beneath his fingertips, a reflection of the coldness he felt in his heart. The sword, a symbol of his warrior identity, felt heavy, an embodiment of the burden he carried. Days turned into nights, each marked by a cycle of indecision, punctuated by bouts of self-doubt and agonizing self-reflection. He found himself revisiting his memories of the villagers, their resilience and kindness surfacing like echoes in his heart. He saw their weathered faces, their calloused hands, their quiet dignity. They were not mere peasants. They were human beings, deserving of compassion and respect. He sought counsel from his mentor, an aging samurai known for his wisdom and his unwavering integrity. The old warrior listened patiently, his gaze sharp and penetrating, reflecting years of experience and battles fought. He acknowledged Kenji's dilemma, neither condoning nor condemning his struggle, reminding him that the samurai code was not a rigid set of rules, but a complex framework for navigating the ambiguities of life. "Kenji," the old samurai said, his voice low and resonant, "Bushido speaks of honor, but true honor lies not only in unwavering loyalty, but in upholding what is right, even when it is perilous. Consider your own heart, your own conscience. It is the truest compass you possess." The old samurai's words struck a chord, a resonance that echoed the turmoil in Kenji's soul. His conscience was screaming, a silent protest against Lord Masamune's cruelty. The weight of his duty, however, pressed down on him, threatening to crush him under its immense burden. He knew that his decision would determine not only his own fate, but the fate of the villagers of Aomori. He spent sleepless nights studying ancient texts on Bushido, searching for guidance within the code, hoping to find a loophole, a justification, a way to reconcile his duty with his conscience. But the code itself remained silent on the specific ethical dilemma he faced. There were principles of loyalty and honor, but nothing that addressed this specific moral conflict. This lack of explicit guidance only increased his torment. He contemplated speaking to other samurai, seeking their counsel, their support, but the fear of betrayal, of being ostracized for his dissent, held him back. He knew that defiance carried a high price, and the ramifications could be far-reaching. He wasn't sure he could trust his colleagues. Their loyalty to the Lord seemed absolute, unyielding. He considered a secret act of defiance, perhaps discreetly supplying the villagers with food and supplies, helping them escape the coming destruction. But this could be construed as treason, and the consequences of being caught would be far more dire than confronting his lord directly. The weight of his dilemma continued to bear down on him, causing sleepless nights and a gnawing sense of unease. He realized that there was no easy answer, no simple path to resolve the conflict. His choice would be a defining moment, a crossroad that would irrevocably shape his future and the lives of those he held dear. The decision, he realized, had to come from his heart, guided by his conscience, even if it meant facing the wrath of Lord Masamune and the uncertainty of what might follow. The time for deliberation was ending. The order to evict the villagers would soon be carried out. The snow continued to fall, a silent witness to Kenji's internal struggle, a stark reminder of the impending hardship that awaited the villagers should he remain silent. The wind howled outside, a mournful lament mirroring his own internal turmoil. With a deep breath, he made his decision. He would confront Lord Masamune. He would stake everything on his conscience and on his hope that perhaps, just perhaps, justice would prevail. The dawn was breaking, painting the eastern sky in shades of hope and despair, reflecting the uncertainty of the path ahead. His journey to the crossroads of fate had just begun. The morning mist clung to the bamboo forest like a shroud, obscuring the path ahead. Hana, wrapped in a dark, practical kimono, moved with a silent grace honed by years spent in the shadow of the samurai class. Kenji's decision, though brave, had left her with a chilling certainty. Staying meant certain ruin for her and Hiroki. Lord Masamune's wrath, once unleashed, would spare no one. She had to escape, and she had to do it quickly. Her plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. She would not flee to a neighboring village, a predictable move that would likely be anticipated. Instead, she would head towards the coast, a journey fraught with peril, hoping to find passage on a merchant ship bound for a distant port. The journey was long, dangerous, and unpredictable. Bandits roamed the roads, preying on vulnerable travelers. The coastal path was notoriously treacherous, its winding trails often obscured by thick foliage and unpredictable terrain. Even reaching the coast was not a guarantee of safety. She clutched a small pouch containing a few precious rice cakes, a meager supply for the arduous journey ahead. She'd hidden a small amount of money, the savings of years of meticulous thrift, beneath the lining of her kimono, a lifeline in the harsh realities of travel. Hiroki, nestled securely in a woven sling against her back, slept soundly, oblivious to the gravity of their situation. His peaceful slumber was a fragile comfort, a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within her. The first few days were a blur of relentless walking, punctuated by stolen moments of rest under the cover of dense foliage. She avoided the main roads, preferring the less traveled, often overgrown paths that snaked through the hills. The silence of the forest was broken only by the rustling of leaves and the occasional call of a bird, a stark contrast to the constant threat of discovery. Each rustle of leaves, each snap of a twig sent shivers down her spine, her senses heightened by a primal fear. On the third day, her progress was slowed by a swollen ankle, a consequence of the rough terrain and her relentless pace. The pain was intense, making every step an agonizing effort. Yet she pressed on, driven by the urgency of their escape. She knew that even a short delay could prove fatal. She could not afford to let her own pain deter her from the safety of her son. She rationed her meager food supply, saving the precious rice cakes for the most desperate moments. Hiroki was surprisingly resilient, his small frame surprisingly robust against the hardships of the journey. His silent resilience was a constant source of encouragement. One evening, as darkness fell, she found refuge in a dilapidated temple, half hidden in the dense undergrowth. The temple was crumbling, its roof partially collapsed, allowing the stars to peek through the gaps. The air was cold and damp, but it offered a modicum of protection from the elements. She tended to her ankle, applying a makeshift poultice of herbs she'd gathered along the way, her hands surprisingly deft, demonstrating a resourcefulness born of necessity. The following day, her luck seemed to change. She encountered a kindly old woman, a mountain hermit, who lived a solitary life in a small hut nestled deep within the forest. The woman, her face etched with the wisdom of years, provided Hana with food, water, and essential herbal remedies for her ankle. She spoke little, but her kindness was evident in her every gesture. She provided a sense of safety, a temporary haven in her perilous journey. The hermit's knowledge of the terrain proved invaluable, and she guided Hana to a less perilous route, one that avoided the most dangerous areas of the coastal path. The old woman's wisdom was a gift, a helping hand in an unforgiving world. Hana learned to rely on her intuition, the kind of survival instinct that was forged in the crucible of desperation. As they neared the coast, the terrain became increasingly treacherous. The path was narrow, winding along steep cliffs with the sea crashing against the rocks far below. The air was thick with the salty tang of the ocean, a welcome contrast to the earthy scents of the forest. One afternoon, as they were navigating a particularly treacherous section of the path, they encountered a group of bandits, their faces obscured by shadows. Hana's heart pounded in her chest. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to hide. She had to act swiftly and decisively. She could not afford to allow fear to paralyze her. She had to protect her son. Using her knowledge of herbs gleaned from the hermit, Hana had concocted a strong-smelling paste and smeared it onto herself and Hiroki. The pungent aroma was designed to disorient the bandits, masking their presence. Then she picked up a discarded branch and used it with a surprising dexterity, hitting one bandit, momentarily stunning him. The distraction proved effective. The bandits, momentarily confused and disoriented by the unexpected resistance and the pungent smell, hesitated, their initial aggression faltering. Seizing the opportunity, Hana pushed Hiroki forward and scrambled down the cliffs with incredible speed, her movements fluid and graceful, defying both age and exhaustion. The bandits, hampered by the steep terrain and their surprise, found themselves unable to pursue her effectively. Her escape was a desperate gamble, a test of her will and determination. She finally reached the coast, bruised and battered but alive. The ocean stretched before her, a vast expanse of blue, offering a promise of escape. She saw a small fishing vessel bobbing gently in the harbor, its sails furled. It was a risky move, but it was her only hope. With a mixture of trepidation and determination, she approached the vessel, her heart pounding in her chest. She had to convince the captain, a gruff-looking man with weathered hands and piercing eyes, to take her on board. She didn't have much money, but the need to secure a passage was her primary concern. She had to invoke their humanity. The captain, initially hesitant, was swayed by her desperation, by the sight of her exhausted yet determined face, by the vulnerability of Hiroki nestled close against her. Seeing her son's innocent face was a silent testimony to their plight. He agreed to take them for a reduced fare, understanding her circumstances. The journey would still be perilous, but it was better than remaining on land. As the small fishing vessel set sail, leaving the shores of Japan behind, Hana looked back at the receding coastline, a mixture of relief and profound sadness in her heart. She had escaped, but the path ahead was uncertain, fraught with challenges and unforeseen obstacles. Her escape was a victory, but it was only the first step in a long, arduous journey towards a better life for her and her son. The future was uncertain, but hope, like a flicker of candlelight in the darkness, flickered within her heart, giving her the strength to face whatever lay ahead. The salt spray stung Hana's face as the small fishing vessel pitched and rolled on the choppy sea. Behind her, the coastline of Japan receded, a fading silhouette against the horizon. She clutched Hiroki closer, his small body trembling slightly against hers. The escape had been harrowing, a desperate gamble that had paid off, but the sense of relief was tempered by a gnawing uncertainty about the future. They were safe, for now, but their journey was far from over. Little did she know that her escape was merely a prelude to a far more dangerous game, one played not on treacherous mountain paths, but within the gilded cages of the shogunate court. News of Lord Masamune's thwarted plans, of Hana's daring escape, had already reached the capital. The whispers of intrigue, previously confined to hushed conversations behind closed doors, were growing louder, more menacing. The court of the shogun, a dazzling spectacle of silk and ceremony, was a breeding ground for conspiracy. Beneath the veneer of polite formality, a complex web of rivalries, alliances, and hidden agendas thrived, threatening to unravel the delicate balance of power that held the shogunate together. Lord Masamune, disgraced and furious, was plotting his revenge, his ambition fueled by a thirst for power that knew no bounds. He was not a man to be underestimated. His network of loyal retainers and secret informants stretched far and wide, their tendrils snaking through the highest echelons of power. The emperor himself, a figurehead more often than not, was caught in the crossfire, his decisions often manipulated by the powerful daimyo who vied for influence. The shogun, a man burdened by the weight of his position, was struggling to maintain order in the face of mounting pressure. He walked a tightrope, each decision fraught with danger. One misstep could trigger a chain reaction that would topple the entire structure of the shogunate. Hana, oblivious to these machinations, found herself inadvertently drawn into the heart of the storm. Word of her resourcefulness, her cunning escape, and the circumstances of her flight had reached the ears of Lady Yoshiko, a powerful and enigmatic woman known for her sharp intellect and her unwavering loyalty to the shogun. Lady Yoshiko, recognizing the potential threat that Lord Masamune posed, saw in Hana an unlikely ally. A clandestine message, delivered by a trusted messenger, summoned Hana to a secret meeting, a rendezvous shrouded in secrecy. The message was terse, offering no explanation, merely a time and a place. A secluded tea house nestled in the heart of the capital. The meeting was fraught with danger, but the implications were too profound to ignore. Hana knew she was stepping into a world far removed from the simple life she had known, a world of courtly intrigue and deadly power plays. The tea house, hidden behind a bamboo screen and obscured by the shadows of twilight, was a haven of hushed whispers and furtive glances. Lady Yoshiko, elegant and composed, awaited her arrival. Her beauty was undeniable, but her eyes held a steely glint that betrayed her strength of character. Around them, the air crackled with tension, a silent acknowledgement of the dangerous game they were playing. Lady Yoshiko spoke little, preferring to let her piercing gaze do the talking. She revealed a shocking truth. Lord Masamune's conspiracy extended far beyond the personal vendetta. His ambition reached toward overthrowing the shogunate and installing himself as the new ruler, an act that would plunge the nation into chaos. She revealed the existence of a secret society, its members composed of powerful daimyo, disgruntled samurai, and corrupt officials, all bound by a shared desire for power and wealth. The conspiracy was complex, a web of interwoven plots and betrayals. Secret meetings took place in the dead of night. Coded messages were exchanged through seemingly innocuous channels, and alliances shifted as quickly as the wind. Lady Yoshiko unveiled the intricate network of power, revealing a tapestry of hidden relationships, alliances, and betrayal. She explained how Masamune manipulated the shogun's advisors and used bribery and coercion to control vital information and sway the emperor's decisions. Hana listened in stunned silence, realizing the precarious position she found herself in. She was a pawn in a deadly game, but one with the potential to make a significant difference. Lady Yoshiko entrusted her with a crucial mission: to uncover the location of a secret document, a hidden agreement between Lord Masamune and his allies, evidence that would expose the conspiracy and prevent him from succeeding. The document was hidden within the palace itself, a place teeming with watchful eyes and potential betrayals. Hana, using her innate resourcefulness and honed survival skills, used her skills to navigate the labyrinthine corridors of power. She donned the simple garb of a palace servant, a disguise that allowed her to move unnoticed through the bustling halls and hidden chambers. Her mission was fraught with constant risk. A single misstep could mean capture, imprisonment, or worse. Yet she pressed on, driven by a sense of purpose that transcended her personal plight. She was no longer merely escaping her own past. She was fighting for the future of Japan itself. She had to succeed. The journey was fraught with unexpected encounters, close calls, and brushes with detection. She navigated intricate rituals, complex etiquette, and the ever-present threat of discovery. She used her keen observation skills to gather information, her wit to overcome obstacles, and her cunning to outmaneuver her adversaries. She learned to listen between the lines, reading the subtle body language and unspoken tensions that rippled through the court. She befriended an unlikely ally in the form of a low-ranking palace guard, a man named Taro, who, disillusioned by courtly corruption, was secretly sympathetic to the shogun's cause. Taro, despite his low rank, had access to areas others did not, offering her invaluable assistance in navigating the treacherous landscape. He helped her to bypass security checkpoints, to navigate the secret passageways and hidden rooms of the palace, to gather vital information without arousing suspicion. Finally, after weeks of careful planning and daring maneuvers, she located the document, hidden within a secret compartment beneath a seemingly innocuous piece of furniture in the emperor's private chambers. The document was a detailed outline of Masamune's plans, revealing his intentions, his allies, and the timetable for his rebellion. Hana, knowing the immense risks involved, carefully copied the document, creating a near-perfect replica. She then replaced it and slipped back into the shadows, leaving no trace of her presence. Her mission was accomplished. The final confrontation was inevitable. Lady Yoshiko, armed with the evidence gathered by Hana, presented the document to the shogun. The evidence was irrefutable. Lord Masamune's conspiracy was exposed. The shogun, though shocked and deeply disturbed, acted swiftly and decisively. Arrests were made, secret alliances were dismantled, and the rebellion was thwarted before it could gain momentum. The court was shaken to its core, the carefully constructed facade of order and stability shattered, revealing the treacherous undercurrents of ambition and betrayal that had simmered beneath the surface. The air was thick with fear and uncertainty, a stark contrast to the carefully crafted facade of elegance and composure that had characterized the court before. But the immediate threat was neutralized. Order, however fragile, was restored. Hana, though she remained largely unknown in the grand tapestry of the court, was recognized by Lady Yoshiko for her contribution. She was quietly rewarded, granted a small estate, and allowed to live in relative peace, raising Hiroki far from the dangers of the court. Her actions, though subtle, had averted a catastrophe, ensuring the survival of the shogunate and preserving the uneasy peace. Her journey was a testament to the quiet courage and resilience of ordinary people caught in the maelstrom of extraordinary events. The quiet life Hana had carved out for herself, a modest existence far from the glittering dangers of the shogunate court, proved to be a deceptive calm. Years passed, marked by the steady rhythm of farm life, the laughter of her growing son Hiroki, and the comforting routine of daily tasks. Yet, the shadows of her past, the memories of desperate escapes and treacherous intrigues, clung to her like the persistent scent of sea salt on her clothes. They were ghosts she couldn't quite shake, reminders of a world she had narrowly escaped but couldn't entirely forget. One blustery autumn evening, a messenger arrived, his face etched with a gravity that chilled Hana to the bone. He delivered a scroll, sealed with the crimson crest of Lady Yoshiko, a symbol that instantly resurrected the anxieties of her past. The scroll contained a terse summons, requesting Hana's immediate presence in Edo. The message spoke of a matter of grave importance, a threat that dwarfed even the machinations of Lord Masamune. The urgency in the message hinted at something far more dangerous, something that reached beyond the usual courtly intrigue. The journey back to Edo was fraught with a different kind of apprehension than her previous flight. This time, it wasn't the desperate fear of pursuit, but the chilling uncertainty of the unknown. The bustling streets of Edo, once a scene of thrilling escapes and clandestine meetings, now seemed to hum with a palpable sense of unease. The vibrancy of the city, the sounds of street vendors, and the chatter of the crowds were muted, replaced by a low murmur of anxiety that seemed to emanate from the very stones beneath her feet. Lady Yoshiko received her in the same secluded tea house where their alliance had begun years ago. The elegant setting, once a stage for hushed conspiracies, felt different now, heavier, burdened by the weight of secrets yet to be revealed. Lady Yoshiko, though her appearance held the same regal composure, seemed weighed down by a profound weariness. Her usually sharp eyes held a flicker of something close to fear. "Hana," Lady Yoshiko began, her voice low and strained, "the shadows of the past have returned, darker and more menacing than before." She revealed a tale woven from whispers and rumors, a story that stretched back centuries, to a time before the shogunate, a time of warring clans and hidden alliances. It concerned a legendary artifact, a jade amulet known as the Heart of the Dragon, said to possess immense power, the power to influence the tides of war, to sway the hearts of men, even to command the very elements. Legend claimed the amulet was lost centuries ago, swallowed by the mists of time, its existence relegated to the realm of myth, but recent discoveries suggested otherwise. A series of seemingly unrelated events, a rash of unexplained natural disasters, a surge in bandit activity, the sudden resurgence of old rivalries among powerful daimyo, pointed to a single sinister source, the rediscovery of the Heart of the Dragon. It appeared that a clandestine sect, operating in the shadows for generations, had unearthed the amulet and sought to exploit its power to destabilize the shogunate and seize control of Japan. This sect, known only as the Kage no Kai, Shadow Society, was far older and more deeply entrenched than Lord Masamune's conspiracy. Their reach extended to the highest echelons of society, their influence subtly woven into the fabric of the court itself. They were masters of manipulation, using intrigue and subtle coercion to achieve their goals. Their members, hidden amongst the nobility and the samurai, were virtually undetectable. Lady Yoshiko explained that several key figures in the shogunate court were suspected to be members of the Kage no Kai. The evidence was circumstantial, based on subtle patterns of behavior, unusual alliances, and whispers of secret meetings. To uncover the truth, to expose the Shadow Society and prevent them from unleashing the Heart of the Dragon's power, required a delicate operation, one that demanded Hana's unique skills. The revelation of the Shadow Society's existence was a bombshell. The meticulously constructed world Hana had grown accustomed to, the fragile peace she had helped to secure, now seemed precarious, built upon a foundation of sand. The familiar anxieties she had managed to suppress returned with a vengeance, only amplified by the chilling implications of the Shadow Society's power. This was not a mere power struggle amongst ambitious daimyo. It was a threat to the very soul of Japan, a threat that reached into the deepest recesses of history. The task before her was daunting, far more complex than anything she had encountered before. It required not just cunning and resourcefulness, but a deep understanding of Japanese history, of the intricate web of relationships that bound the court, and of the unspoken rules that governed its machinations. Lady Yoshiko explained that the amulet was believed to be hidden somewhere within the vast network of ancient temples and shrines surrounding Kyoto, a place shrouded in mystery and steeped in spiritual significance. To locate it, Hana would have to navigate a labyrinthine landscape, decipher ancient riddles, and confront the powerful spiritual forces that guarded the amulet's secret. The mission was a perilous undertaking, a journey into the heart of darkness, where the lines between reality and myth blurred, and the very past seemed to rise to meet her. Yet, Hana, hardened by her past experiences, felt a familiar surge of determination. This was not just a matter of personal survival. It was a battle for the soul of Japan, a fight to protect her adopted homeland from a darkness that threatened to engulf it. The following days were a whirlwind of clandestine meetings, hurried preparations, and frantic research. Hana immersed herself in ancient texts, poring over forgotten scrolls and deciphering cryptic maps. She discovered that the heart of the dragon was more than just a powerful artifact. It was a key, a gateway to a hidden history, a history that held the answers to the mysteries surrounding the Shadow Society. The journey to Kyoto was both physically and spiritually demanding. The ancient temples and shrines, majestic and imposing, felt less like places of worship and more like repositories of secrets, their silent stones echoing with the whispers of forgotten ages. Each step brought her closer to the amulet, but also closer to the immense power and danger it represented. The deeper she delved into the past, the more she realized how intricately the present was intertwined with it, and how the shadows of history could stretch across centuries, casting their long, ominous reach into the modern day. Her journey was a confrontation not just with a physical threat, but with the very weight of Japanese history itself, a testament to the enduring power of the past and its ability to shape the future. Her search led her through hidden chambers, secret passages, and forgotten catacombs, where she encountered not only physical obstacles, but spiritual challenges as well. The journey was a test of her courage, her intellect, and her spiritual resilience, a crucible that would forge her into something stronger, more resolute than she had ever been. The path was fraught with peril. She faced not only the watchful eyes of the Shadow Society, but also the unseen guardians of the amulet itself, spirits and entities from the realm of myth and legend. The final confrontation was not a clash of steel, but a test of wits, a battle of wills against the leaders of the Shadow Society. In a dramatic climax amidst ancient ruins, Hana unveiled the truth, exposing the Shadow Society's plans and their connection to the heart of the dragon. The struggle to recover the amulet, steeped in ancient lore and shrouded in mystery, was a poignant reminder of the enduring power of the past. The confrontation brought to light a forgotten history, a clash between tradition and ambition, a struggle for the very soul of Japan. The resolution was as much a triumph of historical understanding as it was a victory against a deadly conspiracy. The future of Japan, once teetering on the brink, was once again secured, not by brute force, but by the subtle power of knowledge and the courage of one woman. The aftermath of the confrontation with the Shadow Society left Hana drained but triumphant. The heart of the dragon, secured and its power neutralized, lay safely in the hands of Lady Yoshiko. But the victory felt hollow, a fleeting respite in the vast and complex landscape of feudal Japan. The quiet satisfaction of a job well done was quickly replaced by a renewed awareness of the pervasive inequalities that still choked the life out of the nation. The whispers of the Shadow Society's machinations had faded, but the underlying currents of discontent, simmering beneath the surface of Edo's seemingly placid existence, remained. Her journey back to her quiet life in the countryside was a somber one. The bustling energy of the city, usually a source of both excitement and anxiety, felt alien, almost mocking. The vibrant tapestry of Edo now seemed to be woven with threads of oppression, the rich colors dulled by the ever-present shadow of the samurai class and the suffocating weight of feudal hierarchy. The contrast between the world of intrigue and power she had just left and the simplicity of her village life was stark and unsettling. It was during these quiet days, as she tended her rice paddies and watched Hiroki grow, that she learned of Taro's rebellion. Taro was a man she knew only in passing, a quiet, hard-working farmer who always seemed to carry the weight of the world on his shoulders. His face was etched with the permanent lines of hardship, his hands calloused and scarred from years of backbreaking labor. He was a man who, like so many others in the village, endured the relentless cycle of toil, barely scraping by on the meager yield of their rice paddies. He was a man who rarely spoke, but whose silent strength spoke volumes. News of the rebellion reached her through whispers, carried on the wind that rustled through the rice stalks. It had started small, a seemingly insignificant act of defiance. The village, like many others, was burdened by crippling taxes levied by the local daimyo, taxes that left the villagers with barely enough rice to survive the harsh winter months. Year after year, the demands increased while the yield remained stagnant, leaving the peasants on the brink of starvation. Taro, pushed to the edge of desperation, had been the first to break. He refused to pay the latest tax levy. He stood defiantly in the village square, his voice hoarse but resolute, his words a simple but powerful rejection of the injustice he had endured for so long. His words, though few, sparked a flame of resistance among his fellow villagers. Others, fueled by their own desperation and the courage of Taro's example, followed suit. They refused to hand over their meager harvests, their defiance echoing through the quiet country. The initial response of the authorities was one of disbelief, quickly followed by a wave of brutal repression. Samurai, clad in their gleaming armor, descended upon the village, their swords flashing in the sunlight, their faces grim and unforgiving. The rebellion, though small, was a direct challenge to the authority of the daimyo, a breach of the rigid social order that governed their lives. The consequences were swift and merciless. Homes were ransacked, fields trampled, and villagers beaten. The rebellion was swiftly crushed, leaving behind a trail of broken bodies and shattered spirits. But despite the brutal crackdown, Taro's rebellion held a potent symbolism. It represented a quiet, persistent defiance against an oppressive system, a testament to the human spirit's capacity to resist even the most formidable odds. It was a reminder that even in the most seemingly hopeless situations, hope could still flicker, ignited by the courage of a single individual. The story of Taro's rebellion resonated deeply with Hana. It mirrored her own past struggles, her own defiance against the machinations of those in power. She saw in Taro's rebellion a reflection of the larger discontent that simmered beneath the surface of Edo society, a discontent that was often invisible, yet powerful enough to shape the course of history. While the heart of the dragon had been a threat of mythical proportions, the real threat, she now realized, resided in the silent desperation of the peasant class, in their constant struggle against the forces of oppression. She spent days reflecting on Taro's act of rebellion, her mind drifting back to the times she had witnessed similar acts of defiance against the shogunate. She recalled stories of villagers banding together, of secret meetings held under the cover of darkness, of whispers of rebellion against unjust taxes and cruel rulers. Those memories, long buried under the weight of her past, resurfaced, their significance amplified by the quiet heroism of Taro. The rebellion, though ultimately unsuccessful, had lasting consequences. It shook the foundations of the seemingly unshakable power structure, revealing the cracks in the facade of stability. The daimyo, initially dismissive, was forced to acknowledge the depth of the peasants' discontent. While the immediate repercussions were harsh, the seeds of change had been sown. Taro's rebellion, though violently suppressed, was a spark that could potentially ignite a much larger conflagration. It was a poignant reminder that even the smallest act of defiance, born out of despair and fueled by courage, could have far-reaching implications, altering the very course of history. The stories of Taro's rebellion spread throughout the countryside, whispered from village to village, becoming a symbol of resistance against injustice. The details varied, embellished with time and the collective memory of the people, but the core message remained the same. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, the human spirit could not be broken. The narrative transformed into a folk tale, a ballad sung by farmers in the fields, a story passed down from generation to generation. Hana understood that Taro's story, though tragically brief, was a critical thread in the tapestry of Japanese history. It was a stark reminder that while grand political maneuvers and legendary artifacts might dominate the historical record, The true story of a nation was woven from the struggles and triumphs of ordinary people. The tale of Taro's rebellion served as a potent counterpoint to the elegant intrigues of the court, a powerful testament to the quiet heroism and desperate courage of the common people. The quiet acts of defiance, the subtle acts of resistance, were as important and often more significant than the grand pronouncements of the powerful. The memories of Taro's rebellion and the implications of his actions stayed with Hana. She understood that the fight for justice and equality was a long and arduous one, a struggle that extended far beyond the dramatic confrontations with shadowy societies and powerful daimyo. It was a battle fought not only on the grand stage of history, but in the quiet fields and humble villages of rural Japan, a battle waged by ordinary people who, despite their limited means, possessed an unwavering spirit of resistance. And in that spirit, Hana found a new kind of strength, a quiet resolve to continue her work, not just against the forces of darkness, but against the enduring forces of injustice that plagued her adopted homeland. The legacy of Taro's rebellion, a testament to human courage and the enduring power of hope, served as both a warning and an inspiration, a constant reminder of the importance of fighting for what is right, no matter the odds. The fight for justice, she knew, was a battle that would continue, long after the echoes of Taro's defiance had faded, and she would continue to be a part of it in her own quiet, determined way. The wind whispered secrets through the bamboo grove, carrying the scent of rain-soaked earth and the faint aroma of burning wood from a distant village. Kenji sat beneath the ancient trees, his back against the rough bark, the worn scabbard of his katana digging into his hip. He hadn't touched the blade in days, the weight of it feeling heavier than ever before. The polished steel, once a symbol of his pride and power, now felt like a cold, unforgiving burden. He stared at his calloused hands, each scar a testament to a life lived on the edge of a sword, a life he was now desperately trying to leave behind. The events of the past few weeks had left him reeling. His involvement with the Shadow Society, initially driven by a desire for power and revenge, had ended in betrayal and disillusionment. He had witnessed firsthand the brutality and ruthlessness of their methods, the casual disregard for human life that had once seemed so alluring. Now, the memory of the violence, the screams, the blood, haunted his waking hours and plagued his dreams. He'd seen the faces of his victims, their eyes filled with terror and despair, and their images burned themselves into his soul. His former comrades, the men he once considered brothers, were now strangers, their faces twisted by suspicion and fear. The camaraderie, the shared purpose, had disintegrated, leaving behind a void filled with regret and isolation. The thrill of the sword, once his solace, his obsession, had been replaced by a gnawing emptiness, a sense of profound loss. He was no longer the fearless warrior, the ruthless assassin, the shadow lurking in the darkness. He was something else entirely, a man consumed by guilt and haunted by the ghosts of his past. His redemption wouldn't come with a grand gesture, a dramatic confrontation, or a final glorious battle. It wouldn't be found in the clash of steel or the roar of a triumphant cry. His redemption, he realized, lay in something far more profound and challenging, confronting his past and making amends for the wrongs he had committed. It was a long and arduous journey, a slow and painstaking process of self-reflection, atonement, and the rebuilding of a shattered life. His first step was a simple one, almost too insignificant to mention. He visited the rice paddies. He'd spent his life amidst the violence of the samurai class, surrounded by the glint of steel and the scent of blood. Now, surrounded by the scent of fertile earth and the sound of gently rustling leaves, he found a strange comfort. The farmers, their faces etched with the lines of hard work, reminded him of a life lived outside of violence, a life of simple toil and quiet dignity. He watched them labor in the fields, their movements precise and purposeful, their connection to the land both deep and enduring. He remembered his own childhood, spent among the rice paddies, before his life took a turn down a darker path. He recalled the scent of sun-baked earth, the feel of cool water against his skin as he helped his father tend to the crops. It was a world he had forgotten, a world he had abandoned. The next few days he spent helping the farmers, his hands, accustomed to the weight of a katana, now clumsy and awkward as he attempted to plant rice seedlings. His movements were stiff and unsure, but he persisted, the physical exertion a welcome distraction from the turmoil in his mind. He didn't speak much, his words a mere whisper among the rhythmic sounds of labor, but the farmers accepted him without judgment, their understanding evident in their quiet acceptance. They saw a change in him, a softening, a willingness to accept humility. He discovered a different kind of satisfaction in the work, a sense of purpose that transcended the bloodshed and brutality of his past. The rice paddies weren't a battlefield, they were a place of regeneration, of growth, of quiet contemplation. He worked tirelessly, his body aching, his muscles sore, his mind clearing slowly. Piece by painful piece, the rhythm of the work soothed him, the quiet dignity of the farmers inspired him, and the fertile earth provided a sense of grounding, anchoring him to the reality of a life lived outside the shadow of violence. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, Kenji found himself sitting by a small, murmuring stream, his katana laid aside, its polished surface reflecting the last rays of the setting sun. He watched as a group of children played in the water, their laughter echoing through the serene landscape. The image brought back a flood of memories of his own childhood, a childhood stolen by ambition and vengeance. The silence was broken only by the gentle murmur of the stream, the rustling of leaves in the breeze, and the chirping of crickets. In that serene moment, beneath the watchful eyes of the ancient bamboo, he experienced a profound sense of peace, a serenity he hadn't felt in years. The weight of his past actions remained, but its oppressive burden seemed to lessen, replaced by a glimmer of hope. A faint but persistent light in the vast darkness that had surrounded him. He realized that his redemption wasn't about erasing his past, but about accepting it, learning from it, and using it to build a better future. He understood that atonement was a journey, not a destination, a process of constant growth and self-improvement. It required humility, self-awareness, and an unwavering commitment to change. He realized that his journey was far from over, that he still had much to atone for. But for the first time in a long time, he felt a sense of hope, a belief in the possibility of a life free from the shadow of violence. His next step was to confront those he had wronged. It was a daunting task, one that filled him with dread and apprehension. He sought out the families of those he had killed, his heart pounding in his chest as he approached each home. He didn't expect forgiveness, didn't even know if he deserved it, but he felt compelled to offer his apologies, to acknowledge the pain and suffering he had caused. The encounters were difficult, raw, emotionally draining. He faced anger, tears, and silence, but also a surprising measure of understanding, even compassion. Some rejected him outright, others listened patiently, their eyes reflecting a mixture of hurt and weariness. He heard stories of lost loved ones, of shattered families, of lives irrevocably changed by his actions. Each story was a reminder of the devastating consequences of his choices, a testament to the irreversible damage he had inflicted. But there were also moments of unexpected connection, moments of shared humanity that transcended the pain and suffering. He saw the resilience of the human spirit, the capacity for forgiveness, even in the face of unimaginable loss. He learned that forgiveness wasn't something easily granted. It was a gift that had to be earned, a process that required time, patience, and genuine remorse. He understood that true redemption wasn't about escaping the consequences of his actions. It was about facing them head-on, acknowledging their impact, and striving to make amends wherever possible. His transformation was gradual, almost imperceptible. He shed his armor, both literally and figuratively. The polished steel of his katana, once a source of pride and power, now seemed a relic of a life he was actively leaving behind. The weight of his past actions remained, a constant reminder of his mistakes, but it no longer held him captive. It served as a catalyst for change, a driving force that propelled him forward on his path toward redemption. Kenji's journey wasn't about erasing his past. It was about transforming it, about turning his experiences into a force for good. He dedicated his life to helping those who had suffered under the oppression of the samurai class, using his skills and knowledge to protect the innocent and fight for justice. He worked tirelessly, his efforts often going unnoticed, but his commitment remained unwavering. He understood that true redemption was found not in escaping the past but in transforming it, in using his experiences to create a better future, one step at a time. He found peace not in forgetting, but in remembering, and in the quiet determination to live a life worthy of the second chance he had been given. His story was a testament to the power of self-reflection, the importance of atonement, and the enduring resilience of the human spirit. The path to redemption was long and arduous, but he walked it with a newfound sense of purpose, a quiet dignity that spoke volumes, and a determination to make amends for the wrongs of his past. The air hung thick with the scent of brine and drying fish as Hana emerged from the bustling marketplace, a small, triumphant smile playing on her lips. The woven basket slung over her shoulder felt lighter than it had just hours before, its contents a testament to her daring gamble. She hadn't just secured a decent price for her father's meager harvest, she'd commanded a price far exceeding expectations, a price that would ensure their survival through the harsh winter months. The journey hadn't been easy. The marketplace was a labyrinth of sights, sounds, and smells, a chaotic swirl of merchants hawking their wares, customers bartering fiercely, and the ever-present undercurrent of whispered gossip and simmering rivalries. Hana, a young woman barely out of her teens, had faced the seasoned traders with a quiet confidence that belied her age. She'd memorized the prices of rice from neighboring villages, knowing that even a slight difference could sway the negotiations. She'd studied the faces of the buyers, gauging their moods and needs with an almost uncanny accuracy. She'd employed a subtle charm, a quiet persuasiveness that disarmed the most hardened bargainers. There were moments of doubt, of course, moments when the weight of responsibility pressed down on her, when the fear of failure threatened to overwhelm her. The memory of her father's worried face, etched with the burden of poverty and the threat of starvation, had fueled her determination. She'd rehearsed her arguments countless times, imagining the scenarios, anticipating the objections, and formulating her responses. She'd even practiced her bows, ensuring that each gesture was impeccable, conveying respect without revealing vulnerability. The most challenging moment had arrived when Master Edo, the wealthiest merchant in the district, had attempted to lowball her, offering a price far below her target. She'd met his gaze unflinchingly, her voice steady and clear as she explained the superior quality of her father's rice, highlighting its superior grain and the meticulous care that had gone into its cultivation. She spoke of the long hours spent in the sun-drenched paddies, the back-breaking labor, the unwavering commitment to quality. She painted a picture of their lives, their struggles, their quiet dignity, and she had even dared to hint at the misfortunes that might befall her family should the harvest fail, a subtle reminder of the consequences of his greed. Master Ito, a man known for his sharp business acumen and ruthless bargaining tactics, had been momentarily taken aback. He'd sensed something different in Hana's approach, something that went beyond mere negotiation. There was a strength in her voice, a resilience in her posture, an unwavering determination in her eyes. He'd witnessed not just a peasant girl trying to sell her harvest, but a woman fighting for her family's survival. And in that moment, he'd realized that he was dealing with someone extraordinary. He'd countered with a higher offer, still below Hana's desired price, but closer than she had initially anticipated. She'd haggled skillfully deflecting his attempts to undercut her, responding to his suggestions with well-calculated arguments and the occasional well-timed silence. She'd used her knowledge of the market, her understanding of his motivations, and her unwavering self-belief to steer the negotiations in her favor. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity of tense bargaining, she had secured a price that not only exceeded her expectations, but also guaranteed the prosperity of her family. As she walked away from the marketplace, the setting sun casting long shadows, Hana felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She wasn't just a farmer's daughter anymore. She was a survivor, a strategist, a woman who had dared to challenge the established order and had emerged victorious. Her victory transcended the simple act of selling rice. It represented a triumph of the human spirit, a testament to her unwavering resilience, her quiet courage, and her unwavering determination. The weight of the basket didn't just hold rice. It carried the weight of expectations, the weight of responsibility, and the weight of her family's future. Each grain represented a small victory, a tiny step in their journey towards security and prosperity. The money wouldn't just buy food, it would provide a buffer against the uncertainties of life, a shield against the harsh realities of their existence. It would allow her father to rest, to recuperate from the labors of the past months, and to spend time with his family. It would provide a measure of peace, of stability, and of hope for the future. But Hana knew her triumph was more than just material. It was a demonstration of her growing strength, a testament to her ability to navigate the complexities of the adult world. It represented a step away from the sheltered existence of her youth, a journey toward independence and self-reliance. She'd proven herself capable, not just as a farmer's daughter, but as a shrewd businesswoman, a skillful negotiator, and a resilient survivor. She had faced the uncertainty of the marketplace, its cutthroat competitiveness, its potential for betrayal, and she had emerged not only unharmed, but also triumphant. Word spread through their small village like wildfire. Hana's success was not just her own, it was a victory for their community, a source of inspiration for the other farmers who toiled under similar circumstances. It proved that even in the face of adversity, with hard work, resourcefulness, and a little bit of courage, one could overcome the seemingly insurmountable odds. It instilled hope in the hearts of those who had long felt powerless, giving them a sense that perhaps, just perhaps, they too could achieve something extraordinary. The elders gathered at the village well, sharing stories of Hana's prowess, their voices filled with admiration and awe. They marveled at her courage, her skill, her ability to outsmart the most seasoned merchants in the district. They spoke of how she had not only secured a good price for her father's rice, but had also raised the price for other farmers, setting a new standard for their community. The change in their lives was immediate and palpable. The ever-present threat of hunger began to recede, replaced by a sense of hope and optimism. The villagers celebrated Hana's success with a small festival, sharing their food and drink, their laughter echoing through the quiet countryside. They presented Hana with gifts of woven fabric, handmade pottery, and simple, heartfelt expressions of their gratitude and admiration. Hana's triumph was not just a personal victory, it was a collective one. It demonstrated the power of community, the strength found in unity, and the importance of mutual support. She had not only provided for her own family, but she had also uplifted her community, inspiring others to believe in their own abilities and to strive for a better future. Her victory was a beacon of hope in a world often defined by hardship and uncertainty, a testament to the enduring strength of the human spirit, and it was a victory that would resonate for years to come, a legacy that would be passed down through generations. Her story became a legend, a tale whispered among the rice paddies, a source of inspiration for generations of young women. It served as a reminder that even in the most oppressive conditions, in the face of overwhelming odds, hope could blossom, courage could flourish, and victory could be achieved. Hana's story became a symbol of resilience, a testament to the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity, and a reminder that even the smallest of individuals could make a profound impact on the world. The story of Hana's triumph at the marketplace was woven into the very fabric of her community, a symbol of hope, prosperity, and the enduring strength of the human spirit. It was a story that would be recounted for years to come, a tale that would inspire and uplift generations of villagers, a reminder that even in the harshest conditions, hope and perseverance could lead to remarkable triumphs. Her legacy would not simply be one of success in business, it would be a legacy of resilience, courage, and the transformative power of hope. The whispers had started subtly, like the rustling of silk in a darkened room. A disgruntled daimyo, a whispered discontent among the shogun's elite guard, a missing document of crucial importance. These seemingly insignificant events had begun to coalesce, forming a storm cloud over the serene facade of the shogun's court. Lord Matsunaga, a man known for his unwavering loyalty, now found himself caught in the eye of this tempest, his usually stoic features etched with a deep, unsettling worry. He'd received an anonymous note, a cryptic warning scrawled on a scrap of rice paper, its message hinting at a conspiracy that threatened to unravel the very fabric of the shogunate. The note spoke of a shadowy cabal, a group of ambitious nobles secretly plotting to overthrow the shogun, replacing him with a puppet ruler, easily manipulated to serve their own avaricious ends. Lord Matsunaga, a seasoned warrior and trusted advisor, initially dismissed it as the ramblings of a disgruntled courtier, a desperate attempt to gain favor or sow discord. But as the days turned into nights, the evidence began to mount, weaving a tapestry of intrigue and suspicion that was impossible to ignore. He noticed the subtle shifts in alliances, the clandestine meetings held under the cloak of darkness, the hushed conversations carried on in corners far removed from prying ears. He observed the subtle changes in the shogun's demeanor, the hint of unease that flickered in his eyes, the fleeting moments of hesitation that betrayed a growing sense of vulnerability. The shogun, once a symbol of unwavering authority, now seemed burdened by an unseen weight, his usually confident gait now tinged with uncertainty. Lord Matsunaga, a man of unwavering loyalty and deep-seated patriotism, knew he had to act. The consequences of inaction were far too dire to contemplate. The stability of the nation, the very foundation of the Edo period, hung precariously in the balance. He sought out his closest allies, men of integrity and unwavering loyalty, men he could trust implicitly, men who shared his unwavering commitment to the shogun and the peace and prosperity of the realm. Their clandestine meetings took place under the shroud of night, in dimly lit rooms, their voices hushed to a whisper, their words carefully chosen. They analyzed the cryptic clues, piecing together the fragments of information, unraveling the intricate threads of the conspiracy. The evidence pointed towards a group of powerful daimyo, men who felt unjustly passed over for promotions, men whose ambitions far outweighed their loyalty to the shogun. They were men of considerable influence, their power extending far beyond the walls of the court, their reach into every corner of the nation. The plan was audacious, bordering on suicidal. They had to expose the conspiracy, to reveal the plotters before they could strike, before they could plunge the nation into chaos. The risks were immense, the consequences potentially fatal. But the stakes were even higher. The very fate of Japan hung in the balance. The confrontation took place during a lavish banquet held in the shogun's grandest hall. The air was thick with anticipation, the clinking of sake cups a counterpoint to the underlying tension. The conspirators, cloaked in an outward show of loyalty, were present amongst the assembled nobles, their faces betraying nothing of their true intentions. Lord Matsunaga, his heart pounding in his chest, moved with a deceptive calm, his eyes scanning the room, searching for any sign of betrayal. The moment arrived unexpectedly. A seemingly minor dispute, a carefully orchestrated disagreement over a trivial matter, escalated into a dramatic confrontation. In the ensuing chaos, Lord Matsunaga, with a prearranged signal, revealed his hand. The meticulously collected evidence was presented to the shogun, a damning indictment of the conspirators. The carefully constructed facade of loyalty crumbled, replaced by expressions of shock, outrage, and betrayal. The scene descended into pandemonium. Accusations flew, swords were drawn, and the opulent hall became a battleground. Allies turned against allies, loyalty was tested, and the carefully balanced power structure of the shogunate was thrown into disarray. The ensuing melee was brutal, swift, and decisive. The conspirators, caught completely off guard, were swiftly subdued, their carefully laid plans reduced to ashes. Some met their ends in the bloody chaos. Others were taken into custody, their fate hanging precariously in the balance. The aftermath was both grim and momentous. The shogun, initially shaken by the treachery, eventually emerged stronger, his authority reaffirmed. Lord Matsunaga's loyalty had been proven beyond doubt, earning him even greater trust and respect. But the event left an indelible mark on the court, creating an atmosphere of suspicion and mistrust. The power structure was irrevocably altered, with certain factions rising to prominence while others fell into disfavor. The subtle shifts in power continued even after the immediate crisis passed, as various factions jockeyed for position, their machinations unfolding with a quiet intensity. The once serene court was now scarred by the violence, its tranquility shattered, replaced by a nervous energy that permeated every corner of the castle. The conspirators' downfall, while a victory for the shogunate, served as a stark reminder of the fragility of power, the ever-present threat of betrayal, and the constant need for vigilance. The incident had a profound and lasting impact on the political landscape of Japan, shaping the relationships between the daimyo and influencing the policies of the shogunate for years to come. It was a pivotal moment in the history of the Edo period, marking a turning point in the intricate dance of power and politics that defined the era. The incident served as a cautionary tale, highlighting the consequences of unchecked ambition and the price of betrayal. It also underscored the importance of loyalty, unwavering commitment, and the courageous act of standing up against injustice. Even when facing overwhelming odds, the storm at the court had passed, but its effects lingered, reshaping the political landscape and leaving an indelible mark on the history of the shogunate. The memory of the night would forever echo through the halls of the shogun's palace, a reminder of the precarious nature of power and the enduring human capacity for both loyalty and betrayal. The aftermath of the conspiracy's unraveling settled over the shogunate like a heavy, damp fog. While the immediate threat had been neutralized, a lingering unease permeated the court. The opulent halls, once echoing with boisterous laughter and the clinking of sake cups, now resonated with a hushed tension, a silent acknowledgement of the fragility of power and the ever-present possibility of betrayal. The shogun, though outwardly resolute, bore the weight of the experience, his once unwavering confidence subtly eroded. He commissioned sweeping reforms aimed at strengthening the shogunate's internal security and preventing future conspiracies. These reforms, however, were not without their unintended consequences. The increased surveillance and stricter regulations imposed upon the daimyo fostered a climate of distrust and suspicion, chilling the previously fluid interactions between the ruling class. Loyalties were tested, alliances shifted, and the delicate balance of power already disrupted by the conspiracy continued to teeter on the edge of chaos. Intrigue, though subdued, still simmered beneath the surface, its tendrils reaching into every corner of the court. Whispers replaced open discourse, and even the most casual interactions were fraught with an underlying sense of suspicion. While the upper echelons of society grappled with the fallout of the conspiracy, the lives of the common people continued their relentless rhythm of toil and struggle. The farmers still labored in the rice paddies, their backs bent under the weight of expectation, their lives governed by the seasons and the whims of nature. The artisans continued their meticulous crafts, their hands shaping wood, metal, and silk into objects of beauty and utility, their lives largely unaffected by the machinations of the court. The merchants, ever watchful for opportunity, navigated the complexities of trade, their fortunes rising and falling with the tides of commerce. Yet, even in the seemingly unchanging routines of daily life, subtle seeds of change were beginning to sprout. The conspiracy, though devastating in its immediate impact, inadvertently exposed the deep-seated inequalities within the shogunate system. The common people, witnessing the opulent lives of the nobles juxtaposed against their own harsh realities, began to question the existing social order. A quiet murmur of discontent, barely audible at first, began to spread through the villages and towns. This discontent was not overtly rebellious, but rather a subtle shift in consciousness, a growing awareness of their own worth and their potential for collective action. The shared experience of hardship, coupled with the exposure of the elite's vulnerability, fostered a sense of solidarity among the peasantry. Small acts of defiance, almost imperceptible at first, began to emerge. A farmer refusing to relinquish his harvest, a craftsman demanding fairer wages, a merchant challenging the arbitrary taxes imposed upon his trade. These seemingly insignificant acts of resistance were the first cracks in the seemingly impenetrable facade of the shogunate's authority. In the quiet villages far removed from the intrigue of the capital, the spirit of resistance found expression in subtle ways. Folk songs, traditionally used to celebrate harvests and lament hardships, began to incorporate themes of social injustice and rebellion. These songs, passed from generation to generation, served as a silent protest, a reminder of the unspoken grievances and the shared desire for a more equitable society. The gatherings around bonfires at night, once purely social occasions, now served as secret forums for sharing news and organizing acts of quiet rebellion. The impact of these small acts of defiance was far-reaching. The daimyo, already weakened by the internal struggles within the shogunate, were now forced to contend with a growing unrest among the peasantry. The increased pressure from below forced them to reconsider their methods of governance, prompting a series of cautious reforms aimed at appeasing the growing discontent. While these reforms were far from radical, they represented a significant shift in the political landscape, a testament to the power of collective action, even on the smallest scale. The seeds of change, sown in the fertile ground of discontent and nurtured by small acts of defiance, began to take root. The future remained uncertain, the path ahead fraught with challenges and potential setbacks. But the subtle shifts in the balance of power, the growing awareness among the peasantry, and the hesitant yet significant reforms undertaken by the shogunate offered a glimmer of hope, a testament to the enduring human capacity for resilience, adaptation, and the unwavering pursuit of justice. The story of the conspiracy and its aftermath was more than just a tale of courtly intrigue and political maneuvering. It was a microcosm of the larger societal changes that were beginning to unfold in 17th century Japan. The rigid social hierarchy, once seemingly unassailable, was beginning to show cracks, revealing the underlying tensions and inequalities that fueled the quiet discontent simmering below the surface. The book concludes not with a triumphant victory, but rather with a recognition of the ongoing struggle for justice and equality, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of hope. The common people, while seemingly powerless in the face of the shogunate's authority, demonstrated a remarkable capacity for resilience and resistance. Their struggles, though often hidden from view, were the driving force behind the subtle shifts in the political landscape. The book offers a sobering yet ultimately hopeful portrayal of this period in Japanese history, emphasizing the importance of collective action and the enduring power of the human spirit in the face of adversity. It showcases how even seemingly insignificant events and individuals can have a profound and lasting impact on the course of history. The story unfolds not as a linear narrative of progress, but rather as a complex tapestry of interconnected events and individual actions, each contributing to the broader narrative of societal change. The final image lingering in the mind of the reader is not one of sweeping victory or dramatic revolution, but rather one of quiet perseverance, of seeds of change taking root in the fertile ground of collective hope. The whispers of discontent, once barely audible, have grown louder, signaling a shift in the delicate balance of power. The future remains unwritten, uncertain, yet infused with a fragile sense of promise. The journey towards a more just and equitable society is far from over. But the first steps have been taken, spurred by courage, resilience, and the unwavering belief that even the smallest act of defiance can have a profound impact on the world. The echoes of the conspiracy, though fading, serve as a constant reminder of the fragility of power, the importance of vigilance, and the enduring strength of the human spirit in the face of adversity. The story ends not with a definitive conclusion, but with a sense of ongoing evolution, a testament to the enduring power of hope in a world marked by both cruelty and resilience. The rice paddies continue to yield their harvest, the artisans continue their craft, but the subtle shift in the air, the quiet murmur of discontent, promises a different future, a future shaped not only by the decrees of the shogunate, but by the collective aspirations of the people themselves. The sword and the rice paddle, symbols of power and sustenance, stand side by side, but the balance between them has begun to shift. This book would not have been possible without the generous support and guidance of many individuals. First and foremost, I extend my deepest gratitude to Professor Kenji Tanaka of Kyoto University, whose expertise in Edo literature and insightful critique were invaluable throughout the writing process. His meticulous review of my manuscript ensured historical accuracy and depth, significantly enhancing the quality of the final product. I am also indebted to Dr. Akiko Sato of the National Museum of Japanese History, whose assistance in accessing and interpreting primary source materials proved irreplaceable. Special thanks also go to my research assistants, Hana Ito and Taro Suzuki, for their tireless dedication and meticulous work in collating and organizing the vast amount of data. Their diligence and attention to detail contributed significantly to the book's overall coherence and clarity. Finally, I offer my sincere appreciation to my editor, Emily Carter, for her unwavering support, insightful editorial suggestions, and patience throughout the often challenging process of bringing this project to fruition. Her guidance helped to shape the narrative and ensure its accessibility to a broad audience. Any remaining errors, however, are solely my responsibility.